Part 47. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 461. Fan Heping. It hurts. He was originally worried about how to snatch Nan Yan away. As a result, it seems that his chances of winning are slim. After Mr. N showed off his precious granddaughter, he did not delay Fan Heping's time any longer. He said a few polite words and hung up the phone. Fan Heping took the phone, thought about it, and called Zhang Chinayan, the president of the Imperial University. After the phone rang a few times, it was answered. Then came Zhang Chinayan's puzzled voice, "Hello, who is this?" "Hello, President Zhang, I am Fan Heping." Fan Heping's tone was a little sour, very sour. Nan Yan was going to the Imperial University to study, which had already made the Imperial University close to the water tower and the moon first. If she was sure that she really wanted to go academic, then he would have no hope at all. Zhang Chinayan. Of course he knew who Fan Heping was. But why did he call him? And the tone sounded a bit strange. Although he was puzzled, Zhang Chinayan still suppressed his confusion and asked, "Mr. Fan, I wonder why you called me." "It's like this, I called because of Nan Yan." "Nan Yan?" Zhang Chinayan's tone was instantly excited. It has been nearly half a month since the start of the Imperial Capital University, and almost all the students who should report have reported. Only Nan Yan, who was the most concerned by the president and several deans, has never appeared. Fearing that this good seedling would be snatched away by others, they hurried to contact Nan Yan, fearing that she would change her mind and choose other schools instead of Imperial Capital University. In order to prevent the Imperial University from losing Nan Yan, a good seedling, calls were made one after another to Mr. N's mobile phone. As for why Nan Yan was not contacted, it was because Nan Yan was in a special place now. Unless she took the initiative to contact others, others could not take the initiative to contact her. The president and several deans of the Imperial University could not contact Nan Yan, so they could only contact Mr. N. But he had clearly contacted Mr. N, so why did Fan Heping, the captain of the special forces, call him? Could it be that Nan Yan chose to go to the military camp? That won't do. Nan Yan is definitely a seedling who will go on the road of scientific research. How can she go to such a dangerous place as the military camp? Captain Fan, let me tell you, Nan Yan has a very high academic talent. As long as she is well trained, she will become a scientist who can make great contributions to the motherland in the future. Please let her go back. Zhang Chinayan's words instantly annoyed Fan Heping. His words and tone seemed to be saying that if he took Nan Yan to the military camp, it would be a waste of talent. And after he said that, Fan Heping himself had the idea that Nan Yan should not come to the military camp, but should go to the scientific research circle to shine. Fan Heping was so upset. He took a deep breath and said lightly, "Principal Zhang, Nan Yan is now on a special mission. When her mission is over, she can report to the Imperial University." What special mission? Zhang Chinayan's heart was lifted when he heard the four words special mission. The mission that Fan Heping called a special mission was definitely more dangerous than a normal mission. This made him more nervous than Fan Heping detaining Nan Yan because she was excellent and wanted to keep her in the military camp. He was afraid that if something went wrong, Nan Yan would have another accident, which would definitely be a huge loss in the academic circle in the future. As for what the special mission is, I can't reveal it, but I can assure you that Nan Yan will be fine. Fan Heping paused and said, "If there is an accident, we will protect her at all costs." Zhang Chinayan's expression was a little complicated. Finally, he could only sigh helplessly. What can he do? The person is already on the mission, and even if he wants to get the person back now, it is unrealistic. He can only hope that the mission can be completed as soon as possible and let Nan Yan come back safely. "Mr. Fan, I hope you can inform me in time if there is any news about classmate Nan Yan." "Okay. Hashtag. The Phi-10 was moving at full speed on the sea at this time. The cruise ships that transported goods to the City of Desire had already docked with Zhongshan, and were all directed to the final destination. And they had to rush over. In Zhongshan's private office, Qin Lu and Nan Yan, like the owner of this office, occupied the two most comfortable seats. And Zhongshan and Li Si were waiting humbly on the side. After a few days of getting along, Qin Lu and Nan Yan left an indelible impression of fear on their souls, especially Li Si. Seeing Nan Yan was like seeing an evil ghost, so he dared not have any blasphemous thoughts about her. Mr. Qin, Miss Nan, at our current speed, we will be able to reach the City of Desire in 3 days. When we log into the City of Desire, we need to conduct identity verification. Any fake identity can be identified. Your identity information is not recorded, and you may not be able to enter. After seeing the strength of Nan Yan and Qin Lu, Zhongshan completely changed sides and began to consider everything for them. After all, his life was in their hands. No, his life was actually connected to them. Without Nan Yan's antidote once a day, he would die in agony. He could only survive if they lived, so he had to ensure their safety. If his identity was exposed in the City of Desire, the end would definitely be death. Or a tragic death. In order to prevent them from taking risks, he wanted to persuade them not to go rashly. Zhongshan humbly negotiated, "Whatever you want to know, I can write it down and send it to you later. You don't have to go up, right?" Nan Yan pushed the laptop away, raised her head, and said lightly, "The permission has been obtained." Zhongshan. What permission has been obtained? He looked at Li Si blankly. Li Si is even more stupid than him. This rubbish, except for having some brains with women, it's a dream to expect him to do other things. Then, Zhongshan asked disdainfully, "Miss Nan, what permission are you talking about?" "The permission to enter the City of Desire." Qin Lu gently touched Nan Yan's wrist intimately and explained it to him carelessly. These days, without Zhongshan revealing anything hidden, they invaded the internal network of the City of Desire. No matter how high the level of the protective wall of the City of Desire is, or how sensitive the security system is, it can't stop the two of them from joining forces. In addition to adding their names to the internal network, they also got a lot of relevant information. In the past 2 days, Qin Lu and Fan Heping have been in contact more and more frequently. They plan to take this opportunity to wipe out the Black Owl gang in one fell swoop, so that they can no longer continue to engage in criminal transactions. And this is not just a matter for China. The Black Owl gang's crime areas are almost all over the world, causing panic in many countries. There are many countries that want to destroy this criminal gang. Since everyone has the same idea, they naturally have to work together to eliminate it. This kind of diplomatic matter should be left to professionals. He and Nan Yan only need to pass on all the information they have found. Hashtag. 3 days later, Nan Yan and Qin Lu finally saw the so-called City of Desire and witnessed its style. The City of Desire is a mobile place drifting on the sea without a specific location. When she heard Zhongshan say that, Nan Yan even wondered if the Black Owl gang could create a floating island that can drift freely on the sea. But in her opinion, this is a bit unrealistic. However, now, she felt that her idea was actually more down to earth than what she saw before her. After all, the real City of Desire really shocked her. This is a huge submarine. At this time, half of it is exposed on the sea surface. Looking at the exposed part alone, the length has exceeded 300 meters. Including the underwater part, it is estimated that the size of this submarine is at least 400 meters long. This kind of submarine, which can be a heavy weapon in other countries, actually belongs to the Black Owl. The wealth of this gang must be shocking to the world. Nan Yan leaned on the railing with a notebook, found the list of guests invited to enter the City of Desire from the internal network, and sighed. No wonder, For so many years, no news about the City of Desire has been found. Those who can enter here are all those tycoons standing at the top of the world. Any one of them can cause a big storm by stomping their feet. With these people, it is absolutely easy to curb the spread of news. Nan Yan was upset and threw the notebook to Qin Lu directly, saying coldly, "Some people are righteous on the surface, but dirty and despicable in their bones. Many of them are well-known philanthropists, reported by media from all over the world, winning all kinds of praise, and being respected and admired by ordinary people who do not know the truth. But they are accomplices in such heinous crimes in private. It's really disgusting. Don't watch it." Qin Lu rubbed her head soothingly. "There is no shortage of good people or bad people in the world, and the world is not black and white. But since we have met them, we have the opportunity to reveal their true colors to the world. There are real great philanthropists in the world. Naturally, there are also hypocritical people who will not do charity out of sincerity for the sake of fame and reputation. They just want to gain greater benefits through a good reputation. Nan Yan doesn't have so many emotions to share with those people, and uncalm emotions will affect her judgment. So, she calmed down quickly. After waiting on the cruise ship for nearly 4 hours, it was their turn to log in. When it came to identity check, Zhang Shan and Li Si were even more nervous than Nan Yan and Qin Lu. After they passed the identity check and entered, 2 pairs of eyes looked at them with worry and anxiety to verify their identities. When the machine announced, "Check passed, please pass," they breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately. After passing the identity check, they had to take the elevator to enter the inner space of the submarine. In the closed elevator, Zhang Shan said, "Mr. Qin, Miss Nan, we live on the 3rd floor, which belongs to the staff area. Above the 3rd floor, the sponsors from all over the world live. Let's go to the 3rd floor first." "Yes." Qin Lu responded indifferently. Nan Yan stood aside with a cold face, looking at the camera above her head with a clear and cold gaze, and a layer of coldness appeared in her eyes. Here, from the first moment of entering, they were under all-round and no dead-angle surveillance. There were at least 5 cameras on the road leading to the elevator that they passed. And in the current elevator, there are also cameras installed in the southeast, northwest, and northeast corners. Looking at the situation, it is estimated that they will be under constant surveillance next. I wonder if there is a place to protect privacy in the sleeping place. However, she guessed that it is unlikely. Using surveillance to take some discordant pictures can make people who come to the sea feast leave evidence that is enough to ruin their reputation. The big boss of the Black Owl should use these things to threaten them and not allow them to reveal anything related to this place to the outside world. Thinking about it, she raised her head and glanced at Qin Lu. Qin Lu also lowered his head and met her eyes. Without any words, just by looking at each other, they guessed each other's thoughts. The two said nothing and were very calm. The elevator reached the 3rd floor and 4 people came out of the elevator car. As expected, when they came out of the elevator, there were cameras on both sides of the corridor they had to pass. Nan Yan was a little overwhelmed. Thinking about controlling so many cameras is also quite annoying. "We've arrived at my room." Li Si paused and pointed to the room numbered 309 and whispered. He was not sure whether Qin Lu and Nan Yan would let him go back first. Zhang Shan also said, "I'm 316, just a few rooms ahead." "Mr. Qin, this is your first time here with Miss Nan, so you have to wait for the system to assign you a room. How about going to my room to rest first?" Nan Yan and Qin Lu entered Zhang Shan's room. Li Si breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that the 2 of them would enter his room. After all, if Nan Yan saw what was in his room, his only remaining egg would probably be broken. Then he would be completely useless. Zhang Shan opened the door. The decoration inside the room was very similar to the standard room configuration of a hotel. 1 bedroom and 1 living room, with a separate bathroom and no kitchen. There was a unified cafeteria here, and most of these people didn't know how to cook, so there was no kitchen to increase the floor space. After entering the room, Nan Yan took a look around. It was just as she expected. All 3 rooms have surveillance cameras. Even the bathroom has 4 cameras installed. It can be said that no matter who enters here, they have no privacy, and every move is under surveillance. In this case, it will be much more troublesome for them to leak the news to the outside world. Nan Yan raised her head, looked at Qin Lu seriously, and said in a low voice, "I think we should go to the control room." Zhongshan. Li Si. Can you not think about such a suicidal behavior? Their lives are tied to the 2 of them, can they cherish their lives a little and not implicate them? Of course, they only dared to think about this in their minds and dared not say it in person. Well, after the arrangement is made, we will go and take a look. Zhongshan reminded in despair, the surveillance here is all equipped with radio. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 462. Zhongshan reminded in despair, the surveillance cameras here are all equipped with radio. So, the content of their conversation can be heard in the monitoring room. He felt that he was going crazy. Being with these 2 big guys was really too exciting. It was so exciting that he might lose his life at any time. However, the 2 big guys didn't think it was dangerous at all, and their expressions were calmer than each other. Really? What's wrong with radio? Listen to what Miss Nan said. It was so arrogant. Li Si was almost the same as him, and his legs were weak with worry. Li Si was even worse than Zhongshan. He was just an idiot, unlike Zhongshan who climbed up step by step from the bottom. His backer and support was his brother-in-law who was in the upper echelons of the Black Owl. He didn't want to die, he had to find a way to tell his brother-in-law about these 2 people and let his brother-in-law save him. Nan Yan and Qin Lu left Zhongshan's room in the panic and fear of the 2 people and went to the room arranged for them by the system. Along the way, the 2 did not talk, they were silent and quiet, but they would look at each other from time to time, and the emotions flowing in their eyes were emotions that only the other party could understand. The 2 of them were arranged to live opposite each other, one in 398 and the other in 399. The 2 entered 398 together first. As expected, there were cameras in all 3 rooms. The number was the same as that in other rooms, and even the interior decoration was the same style. It was just like a standard room in a hotel. Nan Yan looked up at the camera on the roof, asked Qin Lu for a notebook, and began to hack into the firewall of the City of Desire. The City of Desire has a professional hacker team to maintain the operation of the entire protection system. And every hacker who can be selected by the City of Desire is very strong and can rank among the top hackers in the hacker world. Nan Yan typed on the keyboard very quickly with both hands, but her expression was calm, without any nervousness. While she was cracking the other party's firewall, Qin Lu was not idle either. He installed jammers in both rooms. Under the influence of the jammer, the signals of the 2 rooms changed greatly, and the surveillance cameras could no longer function normally. The images transmitted back to the monitoring room were processed so that the monitoring room would not see any abnormalities. After he did all this, Nan Yan successfully broke through the firewall of the City of Desire and entered the internal network. Before, she was a little hesitant outside and could not let go to investigate the things here at will. But when she got here, it was more convenient for her to take action than outside. After erasing their information on it and copying the map of the entire City of Desire, Nan Yan looked at Qin Lu with her red lips curved. "Brother, let's go to the control room tonight." Qin Lu nodded, yes. They are both action-oriented, and the current situation is that the sooner the better for them. The longer the time, the more accidents will happen. The location of the City of Desire was sent to Fan Heping by Qin Lu after they logged in. Now, they should be on their way. They don't need to reveal their identities, nor do they need to confront the people of the City of Desire head-on. They just need to be an insider, lead the way for them, and let them land unimpeded. At the same time, several warships appeared on the high seas, with different flags of various countries hanging on them, all sailing rapidly towards the sea area where the City of Desire is located. According to their speed, they will converge in that sea area in 6 hours at most and surround the City of Desire. Fan Heping stood on the deck, wearing a Bluetooth headset in his ears, and was still talking to Qin Lu. Through Qin Lu, he understood the situation there more clearly. Captain Fan, Yan, and I will find a way to enter the control room and temporarily take over the control of the submarine. According to my estimate, this time will be at most half an hour. So, they only have half an hour to control the people on this submarine. Okay, Fan Heping replied in a deep voice, half an hour is enough, but you and Nyan must protect yourselves. Your safety is the most important. Qin Lu said in a calm voice, you don't need to worry about this. Fan Heping. Well, he is worrying about it. Since both of them had plans, he didn't say anything more. After a few more words, he temporarily ended the call. Nan Yan leaned on the sofa, with her long legs on the coffee table. She held the notebook on her legs with one hand and looked up at him. Is there any problem with Captain Fan? He said no. Qin Lu put away his phone, sat beside her, and turned his head to look at the notebook on her legs. On the screen, there was a three-dimensional map. The red area in the middle was where the main control room was located. The main control room was on the 9th floor. The 7th and 8th floors were the two floors guarded by heavy troops and were the most important places in the entire City of Desire. If the two of them wanted to go in, they needed to plan carefully. If they had no problems, we couldn't have any problems here. Brother, come on, let's plan a route. Nan Yan put her long legs down from the coffee table and put the notebook between them. Just right, one leg for each person, with the notebook in the middle. Hashtag. Li Si lay on his bed, thinking for a while, and finally made up his mind. He was going to tell his brother-in-law that there was something wrong with those two people. Otherwise, if the two of them are discovered, the brother-in-law will treat both of them as traitors and deal with them. Even his sister can't save him. Having made up his mind, Li Si got up from the bed, put on his shoes and walked out. He reached for the door. Just when Zhang Shan was coming to find him, he stood at the door and knocked on the door. At this moment, he knocked his hand on Li Si's face. Ouch! Li Si covered his face and screamed, Zhang Shan, what are you doing? Zhang Shan put down his hand and saw that he looked like he was about to go out. He asked thoughtfully, where are you going? I want. Li Si spoke halfway, rolled his eyes, and did not tell the truth, I don't want to go anywhere. I just haven't been back for a long time and I want to go for a walk. Yes, I want to take a look around. He and Zhang Shan have a relatively good relationship. On weekdays, he often mentions Zhang Shan to his brother-in-law and puts in good words for him in front of his brother-in-law. Zhang Shan also takes good care of him and helps him complete his tasks. Logically speaking, he should not hide it from him, but should discuss the matter with him. But Li Si's IQ was suddenly on the line and he didn't tell him about it. After all, their lives now rest in the hands of those two bosses. What if he thinks this is risky and refuses to let him tell his brother-in-law and insists on dragging him to rebel? So, he can't say. After Li Si finished speaking, he chuckled and said in a meaningful tone, why don't you come with me for a walk? He knew that Zhang Shan didn't like him playing with women the most, so he deliberately made such an excuse to persuade him to quit. Zhang Shan frowned, oh, then you can go alone, I have something else to do. Li Si breathed a sigh of relief. His guess was indeed correct. Zhang Shan would never join in the fun when he heard that he was going to do something inappropriate. When he walked away, Zhang Shan suddenly realized. One of that boy's balls was broken, but he's still in the mood to find a woman? Wrong. He wants to go find his brother-in-law and let him know. Zhang Shan's consciousness fell into a battle. Did he tell them both, or pretend he didn't know? Li's eye was also poisoned. If he was not sure, he would definitely not do this. His brother-in-law should help him find the antidote. He prefers his current life to going to jail and losing his freedom. Zhang Shan gritted his teeth and hurriedly chased Li's eye. He couldn't be allowed to report the news on his own. In order to remove the traitor's label and stay in the City of Desire, he had to go with Li's eye to report. Hashtag. Above the 6th floor of the submarine is where the core members live. The first to third floors are for ordinary members, while the third to 6th floors are for the rich who come to participate in the feast on the sea. Each floor requires a corresponding pass. Without a pass, there is no way to enter. However, Qin Lu and Nan Yan couldn't resist this kind of thing. Without a pass, they can directly control where the elevator stops through the computer. In the age of intelligence, a truly powerful hacker can get around unimpeded with a computer. What's more, not only Nan Yan, but also Qin Lu is also a hacker among hackers. With their combined strength, they can directly kill gods when gods block them, and Buddha when they block Buddhas. The protection system of the City of Desire, both of them can feel like they are in no one's land. In comparison, the strength of the two sides is not equal at all. Just when Nan Yan and Qin Lu cracked the 7th floor's qualifications and entered the 7th floor's territory, red lights began to flash in the corridor and ceiling. Alarm, alarm, all guests and staff are asked to enter their respective rooms. They are not allowed to go out. They are not allowed to go out. Once again, you are not allowed to go out. Anyone who violates this rule will be killed without mercy. This is the high seas and the City of Desire. No law in the world can restrain them. Here, killing someone is very common. Therefore, this broadcast caused quite a bit of panic. All the people outside hurried back to their respective residences. The broadcast above the head continued. After repeating it 3 times in a row, all the lights in the corridor were turned off, and then there was a clicking sound on the ceiling. One by one, the ray scanners poked out from the ceiling and started operating in regular intervals. Nan Yan and Qin Lu saw such changes and guessed that they had been betrayed by those two people. The City of Desire already knows that they have sneaked in, and this move is to find them. In order to escape the ubiquitous cameras, Qin Lu and Nan Yan directly wore jammers on their bodies to affect the cameras around them. The surveillance room couldn't find their whereabouts through the cameras, so they did this. With the abilities of the two of them, it was not that difficult to enter the main control room quietly. However, now that everyone has returned to the room, the elevator has completely stopped running, and there are infrared scans to check all areas outside the room. They cannot hide for long. Looks like our plans have to change. Nan Yan looked gloomily at the infrared light that swept past her just now. The surveillance video of the camera can be affected by the jammer and the image cannot be transmitted smoothly. Can be scanned differently with infrared rays. Jammers don't work on it. The two of them are now relying on their own skills to wander in the infrared blanks of each staggered scan, and the interval between each move is less than a second. It was like dancing ballet on the tip of a knife, extremely dangerous, but full of beauty. Qin Lu easily dodged another scanning line, looking at the closed doors on both sides of the corridor. Enter the room first. It won't be long before the security system of the City of Desire will be dispatched, and they will search layer by layer. They have to find a convenient place to act before being found, rather than in a position where they can only be a living target. Okay. Nan Yan and Qin Lu's thinking are on the same channel. Sometimes there is no need to explain anything more. A few simple words, sometimes even a look, can make the other party understand what they mean. Using the action of avoiding infrared rays, Qin Lu kicked open the door closest to him. Then he broke in directly and controlled the person who heard the noise and pointed the weapon at him. That was a high-level executive of the City of Desire, and he was quite calm when he saw them breaking in. His life was in danger, but he said arrogantly, "You are the two people who broke into the city of desire. Don't resist in vain. You can't escape from here. You'd better surrender obediently. Maybe I can plead for you and spare your life." As soon as he finished speaking, Nan Yan went up and stuffed him with the poison, and sealed his mute point with a silver needle. After completing these two steps neatly, she signaled Qin Lu, "Brother, let him go." Qin Lu let him go, then took 2 steps back, came to her side, and looked her up and down. "Are you hurt?" "No." Nan Yan shook her head. "Sit down and wait for a while." Compared to threatening people with force, Nan Yan felt that threatening people with poison was too convenient. It also saved them from doing it themselves. In addition, using poison also seemed more threatening. The high-level executives of the City of Desire who were poisoned by her began to change their faces in various colors after a minute. He grabbed his neck and roared rapidly, but he couldn't make any sound. In a short time, he felt as if he had walked through hell, in excruciating pain, living a life worse than death. Even the pain he had experienced in his life combined was not even 1/10 of what he was enduring now. When the first wave of poison passed, he looked at Nan Yan and Qin Lu with extreme fear. You. After saying a few words hoarsely, he realized belatedly that he could speak again. Before, he wanted to yell in excruciating pain, but he couldn't make any sound. The double pain and superimposed fear directly forced him to collapse. He swallowed hard, then continued in a hoarse voice, panicking, "Who are you? I have no grudge against you. Why do you want to harm me? There are 2 paths in front of you now. Which one do you want to choose?" Warm TI. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 463. There are 2 paths in front of you now. Which one do you want to choose? Nan Yan twisted a silver needle on her fingertips, and looked at him with a smile on her beautiful face, which was full of evil and threat. Man. He wanted to know which of the 2 paths it was before he could choose. Either you take the initiative to explain your identity, be obedient, and send the people who came to search for us later, or die. When Nan Yan said the word die, the cold murderous intent released in an instant made the man who had experienced the world and had a lot of blood on his hands feel cold on his back. Who are this man and woman? On the surface, the woman who looks young is cruel and vicious. The man doesn't look like an ordinary person, and his aura is extremely terrifying. If he really chooses to resist and refuses to surrender, it is very likely that they will really kill him. If he can survive, who wants to die? The man thought back to the agony he felt before, and nodded hurriedly, "I choose the first one." Then he began to reveal things related to him. His name is Zhou Zifang, an engineer of the City of Desire, and a specially hired staff member, who is outside the core but very important. This is also the reason why he surrendered so easily. He is not so loyal to the City of Desire, but he came here to work for the sake of interests and status. In the choice between his own life and whether he is loyal to the City of Desire, he has to choose his own life without hesitation. Of course, this also shows that he does not know much about the core secrets of the City of Desire. In fact, he is not as clear as Nan Yan and Qin Lu, who have been investigating the City of Desire for several days. Master Control Room, I have permission to enter. This is the only role Zhou Zifang has for Nan Yan and others. Nan Yan raised her eyebrows. Within 3 hours, if you find a way to get us into the Master Control Room, I will give you the antidote. Zhou Zifang. This request is a bit difficult to do. But seeing the 2 of them had no room for negotiation, he could only agree awkwardly. Not long after, the people who were searching for Nan Yan and Qin Lu came to Zhou Zifang's door and knocked on it. Zhou Zifang glanced at the two of them and saw that they were sitting on the sofa calmly and had no intention of hiding. His heartbeat suddenly accelerated. Nan Yan supported her chin and smiled with curved lips. "Why are you looking at us? Hurry up and open the door." Zhou Zifang. "Boss, can you stop laughing?" This laugh made him panic. Gritting his teeth, Zhou Zifang went to open the door. Outside the door, several fully armed security guards, the leader said in a deep voice, "Mr. Zhou, routine inspection." Zhou Zifang suppressed his emotions, just like before, nodded and said, "Well, come in." Several security guards entered the room and saw two people sitting on the sofa drinking tea and eating cakes. The leader pointed his weapon at them and asked, "Who are these two? They look a little unfamiliar." "These are my friends. Didn't Manager Yang say that the information group was still short of 2 people? I contacted my friends outside and asked them to come over and try. They both came in according to the formal procedures. If you don't believe it, you can go to the information room to check." Zhou Zifang's expression was normal, so the security guards couldn't see anything unusual. There are quite a few newcomers who landed in the City of Desire this time, and there are indeed technical personnel who were invited to join. They also saw it when checking the previous few rooms. In addition, the residents above the 7th floor are all of relatively high status. They don't believe that Zhou Zifang will destroy his own future and protect 2 dangerous elements at the cost of his life. The leading security member looked at Nan Yan and Qin Lu again. The two behaved too naturally and calmly, without any guilty or panic. He did not think of the two as the 2 dangerous elements, retracted his gaze, and said to Zhou Zifang, "Sorry to bother Mr. Zhou, and also inform Mr. Zhou that he should not leave the room without hearing the broadcast and being allowed to leave." Zhou Zifang nodded, "Okay, I got it." After sending the inspectors away, Zhou Zifang wiped the non-existent cold sweat on his forehead with a guilty conscience. He had just used his lifelong acting skills to not reveal any flaws in front of those security guards, but the speed of his heartbeat betrayed his calmness. At that time, it is estimated that the security team leader was closer to him and could hear the sound of his heart beating wildly. Fortunately, he escaped. After taking a few deep breaths and forcing himself to calm down, he said awkwardly, "You also heard that no one can leave the room before hearing the broadcast notification." Nan Yan propped up her head and raised her eyebrows slightly. "So what? If you can't do it, you will die." Zhou Zifang. "But..." Zhou Zifang pointed to the top of his head in embarrassment, "There are surveillance cameras everywhere outside. As long as we go out, we will be discovered immediately." Qin Lu said coldly, "Don't worry about the surveillance, just lead the way." Zhou Zifang stared at the 2 completely crazy and arrogant bosses, and nodded resignedly, "Okay. Give you 20 minutes to adjust your emotions, and set off in 20 minutes. Got it? Hashtag. 20 minutes later, the closed door opened. Zhou Zifang stretched his head out to take a look, and saw the infrared rays outside scanning back and forth, and immediately retracted his neck in fear. He looked at them with a face as pale as paper and said, "Big boss, there are infrared rays outside, which is more perverted than the cameras everywhere. Just walk in front, no matter it is a camera or infrared, it will not detect you." Nan Yan and Qin Lu each controlled a notebook at this time. Qin Lu controlled the direction of the infrared rays, and precisely avoided every road they walked. Nan Yan controlled the surveillance cameras and erased their figures on them. And monitored the security system of the City of Desire, discovered the security guards in advance, and avoided them. Walking from the 7th floor to the 9th floor, Zhou Zifang's legs were almost weak. If there were no 2 fierce men behind him forcing him to move forward, he couldn't even take a step. Fortunately, human potential is unlimited. In order to survive, he performed beyond his normal ability. Along the way, there was no danger. Standing outside the main control room, Zhou Zifang was confused again. How was he going to get in? Once he opened the door and went in, he would definitely be discovered by the people inside. The order had been issued long ago, and no one was allowed to leave the room without permission, but he went against the wind at this time and brought two strangers in. Wouldn't that tell them directly that he was also a traitor? Although he was forced, he couldn't explain it clearly even if he had 100 mouths. Open the door. Nan Yan saw him standing at the door and kicked him directly. Boss, can I open the door and not go in with you? Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Zhou Zifang wanted to struggle one last time. As long as he is not caught, he should still have a chance to escape. Nan Yan held the notebook in one hand and took out a pill from her pocket with the other hand. Open the door and you will be free. Zhou Zifang's eyes were fixed on the brown pill in her palm, and he swallowed his saliva. I will open it now. He quickly took out his pass card and stuck it on the identifier. After identification, he verified his fingerprint and entered the password. Click. The door opened. He turned his head and asked, "Can I have the antidote?" Nan Yan threw the small pill to him, then looked at Qin Lu, and folded the notebook at the same time. Qin Lu pushed the door open and went in first. Nan Yan followed. As for Zhou Zifang, who got the antidote, he quickly retreated, running faster than a rabbit. But he didn't know that since he separated from Nan Yan and the others, his whereabouts were no longer protected and were completely exposed to surveillance. The people in the control room heard the door open and looked up. Seeing two completely unfamiliar new faces, they couldn't help but wonder. Who are you? How did you get in? Stand there, don't move. The sensitive person has already noticed something is wrong. Almost the next second, he raised his hand to press the alarm. These are the two people who invaded the City of Desire. The two of them passed through layers of obstacles and entered the control room openly. Crazy. What went wrong? Just as his hand was about to press it, a silver needle pierced his palm. Obviously such a small needle should not cause too much pain, but in fact, his palm was numb in an instant, and he couldn't press it down. The rest of the people finally realized that something was wrong, and when they were in a hurry to do something, it was too late. Qin Lu and Nan Yan acted at the same time, just like two wolves rushing into a flock of sheep. Before they could resist, they all lost their ability to move. The whole process took no more than 3 minutes. After controlling more than a dozen staff members in the control room, the control of the central computer fell into Nan Yan's hands. She immediately changed the password of the control room door. People outside could not enter before cracking her new password. Then, Qin Lu began to control the submarine that had submerged underwater and slowly surfaced. What's going on? Why did the submarine float up? What are the people in the control room doing? The young master of the City of Desire was furious. The two previous intruders had not been caught, and now the submarine did not sink according to the established plan, but floated up instead. The irritability of losing control made him irritable. He grabbed the ornaments at hand and smashed them on the head of the person who came to report, shouting, "Go check it out quickly." The person who was hit did not dare to complain at all, and bowed his head and responded, "Yes, young master." Hashtag. On the high seas, several huge warships were slowing down. Seeing the huge submarine gradually surfacing, even though he had known the situation before, he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. A criminal organization has such a huge submarine, which is a huge threat to the world. Fortunately, it was discovered in time. Everyone, cheer up, pay attention, and prepare to board the submarine. At the same time, the submarine that surfaced also opened several entrances. The City of Desire was in chaos at this time. Nan Yan controlled the internal network, and the people of the City of Desire were now blind and had no perception of the outside world. The completely closed environment made them realize that the situation was hopeless until they were arrested. The young master of the City of Desire couldn't believe it when he was arrested. When did these people get into the submarine? What was the huge mistake that led to the current situation? It took only a few hours from the glory to the end. And the instigator, even like coming here for vacation, just moved his hands and destroyed their painstaking efforts of more than 10 years. Those who should be arrested were arrested, and those who should be rescued were rescued. This matter finally came to an end. Nan Yan and Qin Lu did not seek credit. After saying goodbye to Fan Heping, they boarded the plane driven by Wu Yu and returned to China. Back to Lu's house, he first reported safety to Grandpa and the others, and Nan Yan went to find Zhang Nai by himself. Since being rescued, Zhang Nai likes to stay alone in the room. She no longer wants to commit suicide, and she has no time to immerse herself in the pain of the past. She is making plans to make herself stronger. But, relatively speaking, she does not like to contact people very much. When she had nothing to do, she would stay alone and immerse herself in a calm and quiet space. When Nan Yan came to find her, she was holding a pen and writing something on a notebook. When she saw Nan Yan coming in, she subconsciously covered the notebook, raised her little face, and whispered, "Sister, you are back." She didn't know what Nan Yan was busy with, but she knew that she had not been in Lu's house in recent days. Nan Yan walked to her side and rubbed her head with her hand. "Xiao Nai, sister helped you get revenge." Zhang Nai bit her lower lip, a gloomy look flashed across her face, and whispered, "That day, didn't it take revenge? The man who hurt her paid the price of his life for what he did. She did it herself and killed the beast with her own hands. How can that be enough?" Nan Yan put his hands on her shoulders, bent down slightly, and looked at her level. "Only by eradicating it completely can it be considered revenge for you." Zhang Nai's expression was a little dazed. Eradicate it completely? Could it be that, as she thought, her sister directly destroyed the criminal organization? This thought made Zhang Nai's heart beat faster. She felt touched and a little excited. "That's right. Those people will pay the price for what they did." Nan Yan stretched out her hand and pinched her face, then hugged her, stroked her back, lowered her head to her ear, and whispered, "In the future, it will get better and better. Xiao Nai, promise your sister that you will live a brilliant and wonderful life. Your future is not controlled by anyone, but can only be decided by you." Zhang Nai's eyes were hot, and her heart was sour and warm. She nodded vigorously and said firmly, "Sister, I will." How lucky she is to have such a good sister. She can't let her sister down. She has to work hard to make her sister believe that she didn't make a mistake. Nan Yan raised her lips and smiled. "Xiao Nai is a good child." "Yeah. She is a good child of her sister. In the future, she will become a good child that makes her sister proud." Warm reminder: if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 464. The incident in the City of Desire shocked the world. Not only was it widely reported in China, but even in international news, it almost occupied all the pages. Some things in it cannot be made public, but the things that can be made public are also shocking to the world. This is the darkness that ordinary people living in a society ruled by law have never been exposed to. Oh my God, those kidnapped people are too pitiful. I hope that the police of various countries can rescue them as much as possible. I didn't expect that in this peaceful and prosperous era, such a thing would still happen. Thinking that I might have been only a hair away from being kidnapped, I still feel cold on my back. I hope that all criminals will be severely punished. I am extremely fortunate that such a criminal gang has been destroyed. I am very grateful to those who have contributed to this matter. I hope that all such criminal gangs will be destroyed, and ordinary people will have a bright future. In the message post, in addition to the sigh for the victims, more people are grateful to the great motherland and the soldiers who take it as their responsibility to defend the country and protect the people. After all, without them, there would be no stable life now. Because Nan Yan and Qin Lu didn't want outsiders to know, their names were not included in all official reports. So netizens naturally didn't know that it was mainly their two contributions that could defeat this criminal gang. After Fan Heping reported the summary of this operation to his superiors, he came to Lu's house again. In fact, the hidden danger before is now gone. The 7 deadly sins are almost completely gone, leaving only Nolan, the commander without troops, who can't make any waves in a short time. Nwao was also sent to prison by Nan Yan, and she will never have the chance to come out and die in this life. Mr. N could have returned home to live at any time. But he got used to living in Lu's house during this period, like the hustle and bustle here, and Hua Shifang and Sun Chan also lived here, so he didn't move back for the time being. Another thing worth mentioning is that Lu Lihua didn't argue with Nwao for a divorce again. After being hit one after another and being calculated by Nwao, who treated her as her own daughter, Lu Lihua's innocence was finally broken. Although she hated Nwao to death, she still had 4 sons. Why did she leave her 4 sons to him and go back to her parents' home alone? After Lu Lihua figured it out, she no longer planned to divorce. She just didn't want to divorce, but she didn't treat Nwao well, and she didn't live with him anymore. The two lived together in the Yin family, sleeping separately on the upper and lower floors. Every day when they met, Lu Lihua directly treated Nwao as heir, ignored him, and didn't even look at him. Nwao wanted to apologize, but was rejected. He could only think that she was still angry and didn't dare to make her angry again. Lu Lihua couldn't do anything to Nwao for the time being, but she didn't show mercy to the mistress who showed off in front of her. On the day she decided not to divorce, Tao Sisi and her daughter were thrown into the mountains with no internet, inconvenient transportation, and very backwardness by her people. And the Yin group also removed Nwao from the position of president and let Ns Hisai succeed him. The Yin family, on the surface, was settled. Fan Heping came to find Qin Lu and Nan Yan. The two were chatting with a few old people at the time. Seeing him, Qin Lu said unwelcomely, "Captain Fan, are you very idle?" Fan Heping: "He is idle as hell. Such a major case, even though the city of desire has been destroyed, there are still many minor things that need him to do." He took time out of his busy schedule to come and see their 2 great contributors, but he was still despised. Stinky boy Fan Heping glared at him angrily, then greeted Mr. N and others politely, and then set his sights on Nan Yan, put on a smile. "Yan Yan, I wonder if you have changed your mind about what I mentioned to you before." "What is it?" Nan Yan did not react for a while. "That's right, follow me." Fan Heping's words were not finished, and he was interrupted by Qin Lu. "Captain Fan, Yan Yan will not go to the military camp with you, she still has to go to the Imperial University to study." In front of him, he still wanted to kidnap his little girl. Fan Heping: "So that's what Captain Fan was talking about." Nan Yan also remembered and apologized to him. "Sorry, my decision is the same as before." Well, Fan Heping gave up the idea completely. Even if he wanted to take him back, he couldn't force him if the girl didn't want to. Forget it. He didn't have the blessing. Fan Heping was busy with important things. He handed the medals awarded to Nan Yan and Qin Lu by his superiors to them, said a few more words, and left in a hurry. Even when Mr. Lu asked him to stay for a meal, he didn't agree. That night, President Zhang Chinayan of the Imperial University called Nan Yan again and asked when she could report to the school. Thinking of the 2 people still lying in the laboratory, Nan Yan decided to set off for the imperial capital tomorrow. And this time when she went to the imperial capital, Nan Yan wanted to take Mr. N with her. After knowing that Nan Yan was leaving, Zhang Nai ran to find her. "Sister, I want to go to the capital with you." Zhang Nai's face was firm and stubborn. Nan Yan looked at her little face, didn't ask anything, just nodded and said one word, "Okay." No matter what she wanted to do, she would agree. As long as it was within her ability. Hashtag. The next day, the private plane took off from the helipad of Lu's house. Mr. Lu and Anziran, who got the news and came to see them off, were outside the helipad, watching the cabin door close and slowly rise again. And Mulan hurried over until the plane was far away and only a small black dot could be seen. Grandpa and Yanyan are gone. And Mulan's expression was a little lonely. Is it true that no matter how he compensates, he will never get Yanyan's forgiveness? He just wanted to be like a real brother, protect her, love her, and give her double what he had missed. But she didn't give him any chance. Anziran patted his shoulder. "It's not a day's cold, Yanyan's heart was hurt too much, and it will take more than a day to make up for it now. But sincerity can move mountains, second brother, don't be discouraged, as long as you are sincere, Yanyan will forgive you sooner or later." Anziran was actually quite fortunate that he didn't do anything to hurt Yanyan. At most, he ignored her. Of course, his attitude towards Nweo was not much better, even colder than towards Nan Yan. Perhaps this was the reason why he could make Nan Yan accept him. Otherwise, he would probably be like Mulan, trying every possible way to seek her forgiveness. And Mulan sighed, wiped away the disappointment in his eyes, nodded firmly and said, "I will." He had already decided that no matter whether Nan Yan forgave him or not, he would do his best to treat her well. Mr. Lu watched the conversation between the two of them and sighed slightly in his heart. His silly daughter probably didn't know what she had lost. He had already seen through it, and Nan Yan would never forgive them as parents in this life. Even if Lu Lahua regretted it in the future and wanted to treat Nan Yan well again, Nan Yan would not appreciate it. In the future, she would regret it. Hashtag. Arriving in the imperial capital, Sun Quan warmly invited Mr. N to live in his courtyard. And Hua Shifang's place in the imperial capital was also a courtyard. Nan Yan immediately agreed on behalf of Mr. N and let him live in the courtyard. After all, it would be more meticulous to take care of Grandpa by the master than for her. She had too many things to do, so she felt at ease to leave Grandpa's affairs to the master. It took a day to settle Grandpa in, and she spent another day with Madame Qin. Nan Yan reported to the Imperial Capital University the next day. The Imperial Capital University had been in school for 10 days, and the military training for freshmen was already halfway through. It was only after she arrived that Nan Yan learned that the military training for freshmen at the Imperial Capital University would last a whole month. Since she was here, she didn't want to be special. On the day of reporting, she received her things, changed into camouflage clothes, and went to the playground. Nan Yan chose the Department of Biochemistry and Dean Zongjingkai. But other departments were unwilling to miss such a good seedling as her, and went to Zhang Chenayan every day, and fought for her. In the end, Zhang Chenayan was annoyed and had no choice. The main reason was that he didn't want to see several deans who were several hundred years old fighting like elementary school students in front of him every day, so he simply gave Nan Yan a privilege. She didn't have to be in a fixed department, and could choose any subject in any department. After Nan Yan knew about it, she didn't have any objection. But going to other departments would have to wait until she cured Shen Junking and Bai Chen. When she came to the playground, it was a sea of military green. After nearly half a month of military training, the freshmen had undergone a complete transformation compared to when they entered the school. With upright postures and firm eyes, they carried out various training under the scorching sun. Nan Yan looked at the neatly divided teams and felt a little worried. She didn't know which team she was going to. "That freshman, you are late." The instructor closest to her saw her and pointed his finger at the playground and said, "You are unorganized and undisciplined. Now you are punished to run 10 laps along the playground." Nan Yan. She was punished before she figured out the situation? "Instructor, I'm not." "Say report before you speak," the instructor with a dark face reminded her solemnly, "and your standing posture, so casual, has the training for half a month been in vain?" Nan Yan patiently stood in a standard military posture. "Report to the instructor, this is my first day at school, and I just came out of the principal's office." Her temper is not usually bad. Moreover, it is obvious that the instructor in front of her misunderstood her, and she thought that as long as she made it clear, it would be fine. As a result, after listening to her, the instructor with the dark face was still cold and hard. "This is not the reason for your lateness, but considering that you are a freshman and your physical strength has not been strengthened for half a month, I will only punish you to run 3 laps. Nan Yan. Okay. It's her fault that she was late. She didn't want to be special, so she ran. The playground of the Imperial University is very large, and the circumference of 1 lap is nearly 2 kilometers. After 3 laps, it is also 6 kilometers. If it were an ordinary girl, she would probably not be able to run even 1 lap and would collapse on the ground due to exhaustion, but for Nan Yan, 6 kilometers is just a piece of cake. She exercises every morning, starting with 10 kilometers, and these 6 kilometers are similar to her warm-up exercises. She is not the only one running on the track, but the others are all lined up neatly, shouting slogans while running. Nan Yan runs fast. She plans to finish the run as soon as possible, and then find which team she should be in, so she surpasses that team like a gust of wind. In the first lap, after she ran past, the freshman who was overtaken did not react. In the second lap, Nan Yan surpassed them again, and they only ran about 800 meters. The freshmen who were surpassed couldn't help but. When Nan Yan ran the third lap and surpassed them again, they had only run to 1,600 to 1,700 meters in the first lap. Is she a sprinter? She runs so fast. How long has it been? 10 minutes? We haven't finished 1 lap, but she has already finished 3 laps. No, she can't be a long-distance runner. Horrible. Nan Yan's performance on the playground was not only seen by the freshmen, but also by a middle-aged man who was sitting in the office and chatting with Zhang Chinayan over tea. That student. Pei Yunkang couldn't hide his praise. Physical strength, endurance, and speed are incredible. Which student? Zhang Chinayan looked along his line of sight. That's the girl standing next to Tu Lei. Zhang Chinayan was just in position to see Nan Yan's face. "Nan Yan, what's wrong? Today is her first day at school. Is it her first time participating in military training?" "Yes, she was called away by Fan Heping a few days ago, saying that she was helping him with a task. The task was completed yesterday, and she reported to the Imperial University today." When Pei Yunkang heard the name Fan Heping, his expression suddenly became serious. If she went to help old Fan, then she must be. "Let's go and meet her." Zhang Chinayan was a little surprised. "No, Mr. Pei, she is just a student." Pei Yunkang glanced at him and said faintly, "She is not an ordinary student." Zhang Chinayan. On the playground. After running 3 laps, Nan Yan went back to find the instructor. "Report to the instructor, I've finished running." Tu Lei saw that her face was only slightly red, and there was no obvious sweat on her forehead. Her breathing was steady and she looked calm and composed. He asked, "How many laps did you run?" Nan Yan, 3 laps. "I'll give you another chance. Tell me honestly, how many laps did you run?" The instructor didn't believe that Nan Yan could run 3 laps in such a short time. Even for him, it takes 25 minutes to run 6,000 meters, And that's when he has the best performance. She's lying. Nan Yan was too lazy to answer his question. I've completed the punishment, instructor, goodbye. She still had to find her team. She didn't know where the students of the Department of Biochemistry were. Stop, Tu Lei shouted in a deep voice, I didn't say anything. Who told you to leave? He was in a bad mood today. Nan Yan's behavior was undoubtedly a challenge to him. You dare to lie? I punish you by making you run 10 laps. You can have lunch when you finish running. Nan Yan's face darkened and her patience ran out. If you don't believe me, go ask others how many laps I ran. Instructor, she did run 3 laps. A freshman who had been secretly watching Nan Yan doing exercises testified for her. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 465. Report to the instructor, she did run 3 laps. A new student who had been secretly watching Nan Yan perform exercises testified on behalf of Nan Yan. Yes, instructor, we also saw it. She really ran 3 laps, so fast. The other freshmen also testified for Nan Yan every word. Nan Yan is good looking. Even wearing camouflage clothes can't hide her pure and gorgeous appearance. It's easy to catch people's eyes. Especially the boys. When Nan Yan was running around just now, many people were secretly watching. Tu Lei was slapped in the face in public and felt a little embarrassed. But it was more of a shock. It takes 10 minutes to run 6,000 meters. Even in the army, this is almost the maximum speed. But the girl in front of me didn't look tired at all, and even looked at ease. May I have your name? He asked urgently, then his tone softened a little, and she apologized for her mistake. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the situation and misunderstood you. If you make a mistake, correct it. Originally, he was a little angry at her because of his own personal affairs. My name is Nan Yan said calmly. If the instructor knows his mistakes and corrects them, then it won't matter. If there is nothing else, I want to go find my team. She didn't want to waste too much time here. Tu Lei stopped her. Which department are you from? Nan Yan, Department of Biochemistry. Does the instructor know where all my classmates are? Tu Lei's face flashed with embarrassment. Then you don't have to leave, it's right here. Nan Yan. Oh, Nan Yan asked, then I will return to the team. Tu Lei nodded. Nan Yan turned around and went to the back, standing in the last position of the girl. After Nan Yan entered the queue, Tu Lei was preparing to start new training when Pei Yunkang and Zhang Chinayan came over. When Tu Lei saw Pei Yunkang stop in front of him, he quickly stood at attention, raised his hand and saluted, Hello, Chief. Pei Yunkang looked among the group of freshmen. Where was that girl just now? Zhang Chinayan also followed suit. Nan Yan. Coming to find her? Tu Lei immediately understood who Pei Yunkang was looking for and said loudly, Nan Yan, get out of the queue. Nan Yan came out of the team again. Pei Yunkang looked at the girl in front of him with invisible pressure in his eyes. Nan Yan looked at him indifferently, not timid at all. This point alone makes Pei Yunkang's evaluation of Nan Yan even higher. There were very few young people who dared to look at him without showing timidity. He calmed down his aura and his eyes softened a little. Nan Yan, right? I have something I want to talk to you about in private. Good. The other freshmen couldn't help but be a little more curious about Nan Yan. But in front of Pei Yunkang and Zhang Chinayan, they didn't dare to ask anything. After Nan Yan followed them and left, they couldn't help but chat quietly, wondering what Nan Yan's background was. Tu Lei was also puzzled, but when he saw the chattering team, his face darkened and he began to reprimand. Hashtag. Nan Yan followed them to the principal's office. After Pei Yunkang sat down at his original position, he gestured, Nan Yan, don't be formal, just sit wherever you want. Nan Yan nodded casually and found a seat to sit down. Zhang Chinayan looked at the posture of the two people and asked jokingly, "Mr. Pei, should I avoid it?" Pei Yunkang glanced at him and said, "No, we're not talking about anything confidential. You can listen here." "Mr. Pei." Nan Yan was slightly startled after hearing Zhang Chinayan's name for Pei Yunkang. It turns out that he is Pei Yunkang. Nan Yan knew him. She had heard about his heroic deeds from Nan Mingxian when she was a child. He is a national hero and a well-deserved war god who protects the country. Now, because of his age, he has stepped down from the front line, but he is still contributing to the country. This is a hero worthy of admiration. Unexpectedly, she could see him in person. It's just that Nan Yan isn't quite sure what he and she want to talk about. Pei Yunkang was used to seriousness and was usually unsmiling, but when facing Nan Yan, he tried to keep his attitude gentle. "Little girl, Heping told me about you." "Captain Fan." "Well, he is the soldier I brought out. You are a big contributor to the success of annihilating the City of Desire this time. Zhang Chinayan." Etc. His mind finally cleared. When he called Fan Heping, he said that Nan Yan was helping him. It turned out that she actually participated in the annihilation of the City of Desire. This girl. Zhang Chinayan couldn't calm down anymore when he looked at Nan Yan. Although he knew he shouldn't think this way, he couldn't help but think about it. If something happens to Nan Yan, the country will lose a genius. It's just a casual effort. The real credit belongs to those soldiers. Nan Yan refused to take the credit. "Little girl, don't try to shirk it. Without you and Qin Lu sneaking into the interior, seizing control, and providing opportunities for people outside, this mission would not have zero casualties, nor would it go so smoothly." Zhang Chinayan felt numb again. Qin Lu actually participated. These two. Fortunately. He didn't win over Qin Lu at first, but now he has captured Nan Yan, and finally he didn't miss both of them. Zhang Chinayan was dumbfounded the whole time about the next topic. He couldn't speak at all, so he could only quietly be a bystander. "Little girl, are you interested in joining the army?" After the conversation, Pei Yunkang's attitude towards Nan Yan became more gentle, and he wanted to let her join the army. There is no such thing as too many talents in any field. Especially talents like Nan Yan who are extremely outstanding in many fields. The military camp also has an urgent need for talents. Zhang Chinayan's face changed. "Mr. Pei, Nan Yan wants to do scientific research. He hasn't even warmed up yet, and someone came to him to steal his girlfriend. Isn't this too much?" This is Pei Yunkang. If it were someone else, he would have scolded him to death. Pei Yunkang ignored Zhang Chinayan's objection and waited for Nan Yan's answer. "Mr. Pei, Captain Fan should have told you that I have no intention of joining the army. She still has her own things to do, and she really doesn't have the energy to go to the army. Don't rush to reply to me. You are only 19 years old and just a freshman. As a little guy I personally invited, you can wait until you graduate from college before telling me your answer." Pei Yunkang is willing to give her 4 years to consider. This is already a special treatment. Nan Yan pursed her lips, and looked into his eyes with cold eyes. "Then I will answer you in 4 years. After a pause, she said seriously, "If you need help in the future, you can ask at any time. As long as I have time, I will definitely help." This is not to look down on them. But she is confident in her own strength. With her ability, she can really help them. Just like this time to wipe out the City of Desire. Pei Yunkang laughed. "Okay, little girl is really good. I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer in 4 years." Nan Yan could only agree first. No one knows what will happen in 4 years. Maybe, she will have this opportunity, maybe. Hashtag. Pei Yunkang sat in the office for a while, received a call, and left. Nan Yan and Zhang Chinayan sent him off. After sending him away, Zhang Chinayan discussed with her, Nan Yan, how about you not participate in military training and go directly to Dean Zone? Just now Pei Yunkang and Nan Yan also talked about her physical strength. He can run 6,000 meters in 10 minutes and fight criminals. With such physical strength, why does he need military training? This is a waste of time. The reason why freshmen have to arrange military training is, first, to cultivate students' spirit of hard work and perseverance, second, to hone people's strong will, which can promote students' all-round development of morality, intelligence, and physical fitness, third, to establish a scientific outlook on life, world outlook, and values, and fourth, to inspire students' patriotism and national defense. But Nan Yan has already exceeded the standard, and it doesn't matter whether she participates or not. Nan Yan raised her eyebrows. Is it still possible? Yes, you can have this privilege. Thank you, President Zhang. Nan Yan agreed happily. So, after only showing up on the military training playground, Nan Yan skipped the military training stage and went to report to Zhong Jingkai. Hashtag Department of Biochemistry, Office Building. Dean's Office. Nan Yan knocked on the door outside. A voice of "Please come in" came from inside. Pushing the door open, Nan Yan walked into the office and came to Zhong Jingkai's desk. Dean Zhong, I'm here to report to you. Nan Yan, you're finally here. Zhong Jingkai had met Nan Yan when Zhang Chinayan called him over. I heard from Principal Zhang that you want to study in the Department of Biochemistry first, and you want to follow me, right? In the battle for Nan Yan, he won directly because Nan Yan took the initiative to say that she wanted to come to the Department of Biochemistry. The other deans still dislike him and think that he has taken away their favorite student. Especially the dean of the computer department, who now has a stinky face every time he sees him. That's it. Nan Yan didn't beat around the bush with Zhong Jingkai, and said directly, Dean Zhong, I'm looking for you because there is something very important, and I want to ask you for help. Zhong Jingkai sat up straight. Oh? What's the matter? Nan Yan immediately told him about the genetic experiment and the genetic drug. Zhong Jingkai's originally calm expression began to become serious and solemn as she spoke, and he listened to her carefully. President Zhong, it's difficult for me to research a drug that can repair genes. I would like to ask you to join me in researching genetic drugs. Zhong Jingkai was silent for a long time before he said, do you know that researching genetic drugs is strictly prohibited by the United Nations? President Zhong, even an organization like the Seven Deadly Sins dares to research. Do you think other countries will really strictly follow the orders of the United Nations? Nan Yan's tone was very calm, with the magic of persuasion. If other countries really develop genetic drugs, only our country doesn't have it. When the war breaks out, we will suffer. The United Nations banned genetic drugs in order to avoid violating nature and causing devastating blows to mankind, but it is undeniable that in recent years, some genetic drugs have been used in medicine to save lives. I think there is nothing wrong with researching genes, but what is wrong is the way it is used. Zhong Jingkai's eyes flashed. In fact, he knew what Nan Yan said. But over the years, he applied to the higher authorities several times, proposing that some genetic research could be appropriately relaxed. But he was always rejected. Thinking of this, Zhong Jingkai sighed and said helplessly, only the two of us think it is useless. If we want to study, we must get permission from above. In institutions of higher learning like Imperial Capital University, the topics of experiments in the laboratory must be reviewed and approved by the above before they can be carried out. It is not that anyone can do whatever they want. This is managed by the state, and even if he is the dean, he has no right to decide. Nan Yan frowned, thought about it, and asked, what if we go abroad for research? She didn't want to waste time. Shen Junqing and Bai Chen had been asleep for long enough. She had to find a way to wake them up as soon as possible. This is absolutely not allowed, Zhong Jingkai refused decisively, I will not go abroad, and this is not a matter of location. Nan Yan, you have to know that we are Chinese. No matter where we are Chinese. We must abide by the laws and constraints of China. Going abroad is not a reason to violate or circumvent them. Nan Yan's attitude was also firm, but I must do research. If it is not allowed here, I can only go abroad and ask other people for help. I can promise that as long as the research is done, I can hand over all the results to the country and will not use them for profit privately. This is her bottom line. No matter what, she must do it. No one can stop her. Zhong Jingkai saw her firm attitude and thought about it seriously. After thinking for a long time, he raised his head and said seriously, in this case, you will go with me to a meeting in 3 days. You convince them to start this topic, and we will study it legitimately. Nan Yan nodded, okay. Hashtag. In order to convince those people in the meeting 3 days later, Nan Yan and Zhong Jingkai had to rush to make a PPT with relevant content. Nan Yan is good at this kind of thing. Zhong Jingkai serves as a reference for her and occasionally puts forward some of his ideas and opinions to make the content of the manuscript more convincing. For 3 whole days, Nan Yan went out early and came back late, and didn't even eat at Qin's house. This made Mrs. Qin depressed. Isn't Yan Yan just starting school? Why is she so busy? She gets up early every day and comes back so late at night. Can her body bear it? The old lady muttered, and seeing that Qin Lu was not moved at all, she couldn't help but said angrily, Lu, don't you feel sorry? I think you don't care anymore after you get Yan Yan. You scumbag. As she said, she kicked his calf hard under the table. Qin Lu, who was innocently scolded, said speechlessly, Grandma, Yan Yan is busy with something important recently. When she is done, she will not be so busy anymore. You know she is busy, why don't you help? You just watch her busy. Why are you so useless? You can't even take care of your girlfriend. Stupid. Old Lady Qin was unreasonable when she was angry. She put all kinds of hats on Qin Lu's head. No matter if it was his fault or not, he had to take the blame. It was his fault that he made his granddaughter-in-law so busy that he didn't even have time to eat with her. Qin Lu. Warm Ti. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 466. Qin Lu patiently coaxed, okay, I'll help you, calm down. Old Madame Qin rolled her eyes at him and snorted arrogantly, don't just say nice things and not do anything. I definitely won't, how dare I? Given Qin Lu's good attitude of admitting her mistakes, old Madame Qin's resentment was somewhat relieved. Looking at the time, she clapped her hands on her knees and began to get angry, I won't sleep today, I'm going to wait for Yan Yan to come back. Grandma, Yan Yan's time to come back is uncertain, the earliest is 11 o'clock, and it may be after midnight. You go to bed first, and wait for her to come back. I'll let her go to your room to see you. Qin Lu was helpless with old Madame Qin's chaotic personality. But he couldn't control it or scold her, so he could only coax her. Otherwise, if she got angry again, there would be no peace in the Qin family. Old Madame Qin was very firm, no, I'm going to wait for her to come back. If Yan Yan doesn't come, I won't sleep. It's no wonder that the old lady would have such a big opinion. Nan Yan came to live at home, but she didn't see Nan Yan for 3 whole days. After waiting for her to come, she still couldn't see her. How could the old lady bear it? Qin Lu had no choice but to let her go. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Qin Lu drove to the Imperial University. At this time, Nan Yan was in Zhong Jingkai's office, revising the presentation to be used tomorrow with him. After the PPT was played, Zhong Jingkai couldn't help but nodded and praised, "Yan Yan, this information makes me 70% sure that I can convince those who are present tomorrow. The remaining 30% depends on Nan Yan's performance tomorrow." At the beginning, Zhong Jingkai's understanding of Nan Yan was that she was a genius in all subjects. The test paper of independent enrollment was the most direct proof of her strength. But with the contact over the past 3 days, his understanding of her has deepened. Sometimes, he even felt that she was not a student, but a person of the same kind as him. Nan Yan's past achievements, if calculated by honors, are actually not worse than Zhong Jingkai's. No worse than any other scientist. However, all her honors were taken by Shishkin. Shishkin became a world-famous scientist with her research results and was recruited by the President of the United States into the first research institute. This honor originally belonged to her. So, although she is not very old, her strength is definitely not bad. Nan Yan closed the PPT, closed the laptop, and a faint smile appeared in her eyes. "I hope everything will go well tomorrow. If nothing unexpected happens, there will be absolutely no problem." Zhong Jingkai said with a smile, "Yan Yan, go back and rest early tonight, come to school at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, don't waste time." "Yeah." Just as she finished speaking, she received a message on her mobile phone. "Qin Lu, when are you going home? I'll pick you up." Qin Lu is now outside the gate of the Imperial University. Cars from outside cannot enter the Imperial University without a pass. Qin Lu's car is no exception. Of course, his car is no exception, but he can scan his face. The guard will automatically let him go after seeing his face. Nan Yan replied, "I am planning to go home now, brother. Are you at home or at the company?" It takes 45 minutes from the company to the Imperial University to pick her up. It also takes half an hour from the Qin family to here. Nan Yan meant that she wanted to take a taxi back by herself. The next second, Qin Lu sent another message, "At the gate of the Imperial University." Nan Yan typed half of the message, deleted it silently, and retyped, "Wait for me, I'll be there soon." After sending the message, she looked up and said to Zhong Jingkai, "Dinzong, someone is here to pick me up, I'll go home first." Zhong Jingkai smiled and replied, "Well, go ahead." Hashtag. After packing up her things, Nan Yan took her notebook and went downstairs. Coming out of the office building, car lights were on not far away. Nan Yan looked over. The man standing at the front of the car waved to her, "Yan Yan." There was still a cigarette burning on the man's fingertips. As he waved, a flickering red light swayed in the night sky. Nan Yan curled her lips and strode towards him. "Didn't I ask you to wait for me at the door?" Qin Lu crushed the cigarette butt, leaned his back against the car body, stretched his arms, and circled her slender waist. Qin Lu laughed hoarsely, "It's 5 kilometers from here to the school gate." He couldn't bear to let her walk so far. Nan Yan said "Oh," pushed him, and prepared to get in the car. In the end, she didn't push. Nan Yan poked his hard muscles. Qin Lu lowered his head and said in her ear, "Let me hold you first, then get in the car." These days, it's not just the old lady who can't see anyone, he can't see anyone either. He couldn't even see him for 3 days, and could only chat on the phone. Of course, he missed his little guy. Nan Yan obediently let him hold her. She also took the initiative to stick to him and hugged his waist. "Is it okay to hold you like this, brother?" Qin Lu took a deep breath. Even the arm holding her was a little stiff. Seeing the charming smile on her face under the light, Qin Lu secretly gritted his teeth. He found that since they had established their relationship, Nan Yan would tease him from time to time. Was she challenging his control, or was she sure that he would not touch her so early? Bad girl. Qin Lu grabbed her and kissed her deeply. Fortunately, at this time, the students had all returned to their dormitories, and no one was wandering around the school. No one saw this scene. After returning to the car, Nan Yan licked her swollen lips. Without looking, she could feel that her mouth was definitely swollen from his bite. She tilted her head, touched her red lips with her slender fingertips, raised her eyebrows and said, "Brother, look." The fire that Qin Lu had just suppressed counterattacked instantly. He raised his hands to cover his eyes and said helplessly, "Yan Yan, don't make trouble." "Oh." Nan Yan's eyes flashed, "Brother, is it very hard for you to endure it now?" Qin Lu's face froze. "Do you even need to ask this kind of thing? Is it about to go off the rails?" Qin Lu's hand that touched her head froze. Nan Yan looked at him seriously, as if to confirm his condition, and then took out the silver needle from his pocket. Twisting the tail of the needle with her right hand, she neatly inserted a needle 3 inches below his navel. Qin Lu felt a soreness in his lower abdomen and a cold air rushing up his back. All the fire was gone in an instant. "That way you don't have to worry about misfires." Nan Yan calmly put away the silver needle and fastened the seat belt. "Let's go home." Qin Lu. He felt that the little guy did this on purpose. Definitely intentional. But when did he offend her? Uncle Qin, who was not sure why, looked at her thoughtfully for a while, then sighed helplessly, buckled his seat belt, and drove home. Hashtag Qin family. Mrs. Qin was so sleepy that she yawned repeatedly. The old lady's sleep schedule is very regular. She goes to bed at 9 o'clock at the latest every day and gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Today, in order to wait for Nan Yan to come back, she sat dryly in the living room, so sleepy that she could hardly open her eyes. Molly advised from the side, "Old madam, you should go back and rest first. The weekend will be in 2 days, and Miss Nan will be free to accompany you then." Mrs. Jean yawned again, rubbed her eyes, and said with tears in her eyes, "No, I must wait for Yan Yan today." "No, do you have anything important to say to Miss Nan?" Mother Li didn't understand why Mrs. Jean had to wait for Nan Yan to come back. "Is there anything you have to say at this late hour? If you don't have something important, you can't wait for her to come back. I just want to say a few words to her and just see her." Mother Li was speechless when she heard Mrs. Jean's reason. The old lady really likes Miss Nan to the core. There are so many girls in the Qin family, but none of them are treated like this. Not even Miss Xiu, who is closest to her. Mrs. Jean took a pillow, hugged it and said to Li's mother, "If you are sleepy, go to sleep first. You don't have to wait here with me." Li Ma shook her head, "How can this be done? If you want to wait here, then I will wait with you. I'm going to make a pot of black tea to refresh you." With that said, Li Ma went to the tea room to make a pot of black tea and brought it out. Mrs. Jean drank 2 drinks, but Molly didn't let her drink any more. "I drank too much tea, fearing that she would not be able to sleep again at night." The two simply chatted, finding some topics to pass the time and prevent them from dozing off further. Just as he was talking, a beam of car lights shone in. Mrs. Jean frowned and did not move. She knew that this was Qin Lu's car. Nanyan has been taking taxis back and forth in the past few days, and the car cannot enter the manor. As a result, not long after, Qin Lu and Nan Yan came in from the outside together. "Yan Yan, are you back?" The old lady stood up directly from the sofa, smiling with all the wrinkles on her face. Nan Yan was on the road and learned from Qin Lu that Mrs. Jean had to wait for her to come back even if she didn't sleep today. Seeing the old lady like this, I felt a little guilty. She held Mrs. Jean's hands and said apologetically, "Grandma, I've been busy these days and haven't been able to accompany you. I asked you to stay up so late waiting for me to come back. I will make time to spend more time with you in the future." Mrs. Jean patted her hand and said with a smile, "If you are busy, just be busy first. Grandma just wants to see you and talk to you. Anyway, Grandma has nothing to do every day. She will sleep a little later and catch up during the day. Just come back. Grandma, I know Yan is a good boy. It's enough to have Grandma in my heart. Nan Yan couldn't help but feel a warm current in her heart. From the moment they met, Mrs. Jean made no secret of her love and affection for her, making up for her lack of family ties. Feelings are always two-way. If she treats her well, then she will naturally treat her twice as well. After chatting with Mrs. Jean in the living room downstairs for a while, Nan Yan urged her to go to bed quickly. After that, Nan Yan also returned to his bedroom, ready to take a bath and then rest. After all, there are important things to be busy with tomorrow, and not getting a good rest will affect her performance. Coming out of the shower room, Nan Yan saw someone sitting on her bed. "Brother, why haven't you gone to bed yet?" Nan Yan put aside the towel for wiping her hair and walked to him. "The meeting you are going to attend tomorrow, I want to tell you something." Qin Lu put down his phone and said, "Come here and help you dry your hair first." "Oh." She went over and sat in front of the dressing table beside the bed. Qin Lu took out the hair dryer, plugged it in, and helped her blow it carefully. Nan Yan's hair has reached waist length. It has not been permed or dyed, and with the day-to-day maintenance, it is smooth and black, just like fine silk. As the hair gradually dried, it became more and more light and elegant, reflecting a halo under the light. Qin Lu's fingers shuttled through her hair, and from time to time they would rub against her scalp. The soft touch added a kind of extra care. Nan Yan was busy with the information these days, and she had to rack her brains to think about how to convince those people. She was a little exhausted. Being served by Qin Lu like this, she fell asleep unconsciously. Qin Lu found that she was asleep, and his movements became lighter. After the hair was completely dried, he did not wake Nan Yan up, but gently picked her up and put her on the bed without waking her up. Nan Yan was never weary around Qin Lu, and she slept soundly. She did not wake up when he carried her from the dressing table like this. After her head touched the pillow, she moved by herself, adjusted to the most comfortable position, and fell asleep again. "Little girl, you are not on guard against me at all." Qin Lu pinched her soft little face and laughed softly. Nan Yan's long and shallow breathing answered him. Although he still had something to tell her, Qin Lu was reluctant to wake her up. Taking advantage of the fact that she would not take the initiative to tease him while she was sleeping, Qin Lu carefully kissed her lips, then turned on the night light for Nan Yan, turned off the headlights, and left her bedroom. #. The next day, Nan Yan did not get up early to go to school. She had breakfast with Mrs. Jean, and Qin Lu sent her to school. "How about we talk about what happened last night in the car?" Nan Yan slept until dawn, and only after waking up did she remember that Qin Lu had something to tell her yesterday. As a result, she fell asleep and did not say anything. "It takes half an hour to get from Qin's house to the Imperial University, so we can talk." Qin Lu held the steering wheel with one hand and said in a gentle voice, "No need, I saw your PPT yesterday, there are no shortcomings and deficiencies, they will agree to let you carry out this experiment." Nan Yan raised her eyebrows. "Really?" She was quite confident in the topic she had formulated. However, after Qin Lu said this, the original 90% probability increased to 95%. "Well, there will be no problem, prepare well." Nan Yan looked at his confident expression and thought about it. No matter how confident she would not be so sure. Unless. Was her boss Qin going to give her another surprise? Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 467. Qin Lu did not send her to school, but dropped her off at the school gate. Nan Yan waved at him and turned to enter the Imperial University campus. Qin Lu waited until Nan Yan disappeared from his sight, then took out his mobile phone and dialed a number, I will attend today's meeting. The Secretary General on the other end of the phone was a little surprised. What's going on today? President, you actually decided to attend in person. They had sent invitations to the president many times before, asking him to host academic conferences, but they got the same reply every time. Why is this year an exception? This could not help but make him express his shock. Qin Ye said coldly, "Go if you want to go. Do I need to report the reason to you? Don't dare, then you will host today's meeting." "No, I won't go to the conference room. I'll just watch the live broadcast in the next room. The meeting arrangement doesn't need to change. It will remain the same as before." Secretary General. Then what is the significance of his attending this meeting? It's no different from usual. It's probably just to make him, an insider, feel a little more pressured. The Secretary General rubbed his eyebrows helplessly. He couldn't do anything about his own arrogant boss. Hashtag. Zhong Jingkai was already waiting for her in the office. The agreed time was to arrive at school at 8 o'clock. Nan Yan came an hour earlier, so it was 7 o'clock now. When she opened the door, Zhong Jingkai was eating breakfast in his office. 2 tea eggs and a bowl of rice porridge. Seeing Nan Yan coming, Zhong Jingkai quickly covered himself with the documents on the table, and asked, "Yan Yan, have you had breakfast?" After all, it was a bit inappropriate to have breakfast in the office. "I have eaten." Nan Yan pulled out a chair and sat opposite him, casually propping up her chin and smiling. "Dean, don't cover yourself, eat it while it's hot." "Then I'll continue eating." Zhong Jingkai laughed, put the documents in his hand aside, picked up the tea eggs and started eating again. As the dean of the Imperial University, Zhong Jingkai's breakfast was so simple: 2 yuan for a tea egg and 3 yuan for a bowl of porridge, which added up to only 7 yuan. Ordinary people's breakfasts are more abundant than his. Nan Yan actually admires such people. Returning to nature, this is what Dean Zhong is like. Anyway, she felt that she was not as indifferent to fame and fortune as Dean Zhong. There was still time, so Zhong Jingkai was not in a hurry. He ate slowly, eating the last bite of tea egg with the last bite of porridge, and burped with satisfaction. After trying tea eggs from so many places, the tea eggs from our Imperial University are still the best. You have been eating them for so many years, and you haven't gotten tired of them. Nan Yan didn't understand why she had been eating the same food for breakfast for decades. There are so many Chinese delicacies. It would take a long time to eat the same thing every day. She actually felt that she didn't have such a strong appetite, but if she was asked to keep eating the same food, she felt that she couldn't stick to it for half a month. Zhong Jingkai laughed and said, "How can I get tired of it? Tea eggs are so delicious. I can eat them for another 20 years. In the past, when there was a famine, it was a luxury to want to eat an egg. Now I have no worries about food and clothing, and I have eaten a lot of delicacies from the mountains and the sea. In the end, I found that I still like to eat tea eggs that I dreamed of eating before." People should be prepared for danger in times of peace, and should not be easily lost in luxurious life. Zhong Jingkai lived through the Great Famine, and frugality has become a habit. Nan Yan listened to Zhong Jingkai's words and felt inexplicably. Although she had not experienced what Zhong Jingkai had experienced, she benefited a lot from his words. Great truths, in fact, sometimes exist in ordinary words. There is no need for long-winded preaching, but it is more empathetic. "Hey, why am I telling you this, Yan Yan? Don't be offended. It's okay, the dean's words make sense, and the students have learned from it." Zhong Jingkai laughed again. He liked Nan Yan more and more. "I hope you don't mind my nagging." "How could that be? Isn't it my honor that the dean told me this?" Nan Yan asked jokingly, making Zhong Jingkai laugh uncontrollably. At 7:30, Zhong Jingkai and Nan Yan took a car to attend the meeting. The meeting was held in the National Defense Building. Nan Yan looked at the solemn and quiet occasion, and her eyes darkened. What she was about to face was a crucial fight. If she couldn't convince those decision makers, she estimated that she would have to return to country M. Whether they allowed it or not, she would not give up. The only difference was that if she could get the support of these people, her research would progress much faster, and Shen Junqing and Bai Chen would wake up much earlier. So, she could only succeed, and she could never fail. Zhong Jingkai felt the low pressure coming from Nan Yan, thinking she was nervous. He raised his hand, patted Nan Yan on the shoulder, and whispered, "Don't be nervous, your research is very good, and we have a high chance of getting support. Just perform normally in the speech later, don't put too much pressure on yourself." Nan Yan took a slow deep breath and nodded. "Dean Zong, thank you." "What are you thanking me for?" "If I have to thank you, I should thank you. It's your persistence that made me determined. It's also your reminder that made me think of preparing for a rainy day. Even an organization like the Seven Deadly Sins, which is not worthy of being on the stage, can use genetic drugs to create super-evolved people. Other countries must also conduct research on this type of experiment. Nowadays is the era of science and technology, and falling behind means being beaten. They may not take the initiative to provoke other countries, but they must ensure their strength and be able to deter other countries so that other countries dare not easily provoke them. Whether it is science and technology, military, or medicine, China must be at the top." People came into the conference room one after another. There were a lot of people who only appeared on TV or in newspapers here. Zhong Jingkai was a little surprised by Nan Yan's calmness. She was even more calm than him in such an occasion. With her calm and self-sustaining personality, her future achievements will definitely not be low. In 10 minutes, the conference room was already 90% full. The conversation in the conference room was not loud, and even if they wanted to speak, they would deliberately lower their voices so as not to affect others. For the sudden appearance of a new girl in the conference room who did not look very old, the bigwigs all looked at Nan Yan more. Zhong Jingkai nodded to those who cast their eyes on him as a greeting. He wanted to introduce Nan Yan to him, but felt that now was not the opportunity. After the meeting is over, let them see Nan Yan's ability, and then introduce her to them, which will make them have a deeper impression of Nan Yan. At the same time, in an office next to the conference room, Qin Lu sat in the boss chair, with a 4-frame surveillance camera in front of him. The surveillance screen was the scene in the conference room. He adjusted the angle of the camera, and the camera in the front was aimed at Nan Yan. There was a knock on the door. Qin Lu said lightly, "Come in." Secretary General Zhou Jinyu, who was going to preside over the meeting later, pushed the door in. Zhou Jinyu came to the desk, pulled a chair and sat down, and then asked curiously, "President, why don't you show up? For so many years, you have been behind the scenes. Outsiders only know me as the Secretary General, and no one remembers you. You should come out and prove your existence." Zhou Jinyu felt that he had never understood Qin Lu. He had never seen such a low-key president. He made others think that he was the boss of the parliament. Is he really under a lot of pressure? Qin Lu looked at Nan Yan in the surveillance video and said slowly, "You're doing very well. Keep it up. I'm very confident in leaving everything to you." Zhou Jinyu pursed his lips, his eyes revealing a straightforward accusation, "Can I understand that you are deliberately being lazy? You can understand it this way. Het. Look at what the president said. It's obvious that he thinks that he is a good free laborer, and he throws all the tasks on him without any burden. I don't know what he is busy with every day, and he is so cruel to use him like a donkey in the production team. Then I will sort out the content of the meeting later and send it to you." Zhou Jinyu stood up with a cold face, not wanting to talk to an irritating president anymore. If he continues, he will be sad. "Wait a minute," Qin Lu called him, "today's meeting has a controversial topic, You arrange it to pass. Zhou Jinyu. He looked at Qin Lu carefully, and then asked in an incredible tone, are you using the back door? It's really strange. Mr. President, there will be a day when you will ask him to take a back door. But is this considered an abuse of power by the president? Is he slapping the rules he set himself? Qin Lu seemed to guess what he was thinking and said lightly, she has the ability to convince you, and I just don't want this to happen by accident. Go do it. Okay. Zhou Jinyu was persuaded by him and left the office with a lot of curiosity. He was looking forward to the next meeting. Who is the person the president is talking about? Is it because of her that he came here in person this time? Could it be that the president has a worldly desire? Zhou Jinyu almost couldn't help his curiosity and went back to find Qin Lu to ask for clarification. However, considering that Qin Lu wouldn't say anything even if he asked, he gave up the idea. When the time for the meeting was almost up, he took the folder to the meeting room. In the meeting room, except for the main seat and the chairs next to the main seat, all other seats were full. After Zhou Jinyu sat down on the chair next to the main seat, he glanced at the people below. When he saw the new face of Nan Yan, his eyebrows slightly raised. This girl, wouldn't she be the one who made the president make an exception? She looks too young. The president wouldn't be so beastly as to attack a girl who looks less than 20 years old. Secretary General. Secretary General Zhou. Zhou Jinyu raised his hand and interrupted the voice that greeted him, don't waste time on such unnecessary greetings, let's start the meeting now. I found a new face in the meeting room. Who brought her? Introduce her identity. Zhou Jinyu had a business-like expression. Zhong Jingkai raised his hand to signal, saying, I brought Nan Yan. She got full marks in all subjects in the independent enrollment of the Imperial University this year, and she is the first in the gap. She is a special student of the Imperial University. I brought her here because I have an important research topic, and I hope it will be allowed. The first place in the independent enrollment of the Imperial University with full marks, Zhou Jinyu was more interested in Nan Yan. No wonder the president took a fancy to her. In all these years of independent enrollment of the Imperial University, there has never been a student with full marks in all subjects. This is a rising star in the future, and it will shine sooner or later. So, in fact, he misunderstood the president, and the president just didn't want to hit their supernova. Such achievements at such a young age, the future is promising. Zhou Jinyu praised Nan Yan generously, and then greeted him formally, hello, Nan Yan. Nan Yan nodded, Secretary Zhou, hello. She didn't know Zhou Jinyu's name, but when others greeted him just now, they mentioned the identity of Secretary Zhou, and she remembered it. Zhou Jinyu curled his lips thoughtfully, and said gently, I hope to hear your outstanding performance next time. Thank you. The others, after knowing Nan Yan's identity, began to have some interest in her. Everyone present is not an ordinary person. Take any one of them, they are all big figures in their respective fields. Their attitude towards a junior with immeasurable potential was naturally much friendlier. Zhong Jingkai reminded in a low voice, Yan Yan, don't be anxious, wait until everyone else has finished speaking before we speak. He had foreseen what kind of conflicts would arise when their topic was raised. He knew what was going on, and when things really happened, he would be able to face it calmly. Nan Yan nodded, okay. As Zhou Jinyu's voice fell, the people below began to speak in an orderly manner. There are 3 such meetings a year, which are specially held for the academic community. Before each meeting, the participants will prepare what they want to say in advance, so as to avoid the rush and waste of time during the on-site speech. Nan Yan listened carefully to the speeches of others and took a lot of notes in her notebook. Zhong Jingkai couldn't help but nod when he saw Nan Yan's attitude. What a good seedling! If she is well cultivated, her future achievements will definitely not be bad. Zhong Jingkai secretly decided in his heart that no matter what others do, he will do his best to cultivate her. An hour and a half later, everyone else had basically finished what they wanted to say. Only Nan Yan hadn't spoken yet. Everyone's eyes immediately fell on Nan Yan. They also wanted to know what topic Nan Yan brought up. The girl who could make Zhong Jingkai make an exception and draw Zhou Jinyu's praise, would she bring them a surprise? Nan Yan received everyone's gaze and looked at Zhong Jingkai, who nodded slightly, and then she stood up and came to the presentation platform. The next speech will be presented to everyone by me, please listen carefully. Her calm appearance without haste has already gained some goodwill. It is very rare to be able to not panic at all in the presence of so many big figures. Zhou Jinyu raised his chin, please speak. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 468. Nan Yan stood on the demonstration platform, opened her laptop, connected the projector, and played the PPT in her computer. When everyone saw her research topic, they were stunned. Start gene research. This is a project that the United Nations prohibits research and is prohibited from mentioning in China. Now Nan Yan actually brought it up at the academic conference. Isn't this really a provocation? Even Zhou Jinyu, who was sitting next to the main seat, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Wouldn't the president ask him to agree to Nan Yan's topic? This is a difficult problem. The higher UPS also know that President Qin Ye doesn't care about anything at all. He is too lazy to come here on weekdays. He manages all the big and small things. If he agrees to Nan Yan's topic, he will be blamed if the higher UPS find him in trouble. Zhou Jinyu raised his hand and rubbed his eyebrows in difficulty, but then he was attracted by Nan Yan's words. Those who originally thought that Nan Yan was ignorant of the world and wanted to become famous quickly in this way, and chose to take risks to show their abilities. Now they couldn't help but listen to what she said seriously, not wanting to miss anything. Zhong Jingkai glanced at the situation in the conference room calmly and couldn't help but nod secretly. After knowing Nan Yan's plan, even he was moved by what she said, and even more eager to start this research than she was. They had expected such performance. Moreover, Nan Yan's speech was better than he thought, and more convincing than the practice speech he heard in the office. He felt that this thing could be done 99% of the time. In the office next to the conference room, Qin Lu's eyes were always on Nan Yan on the screen. His girl just stood there, like a luminous body, making it impossible for people to divert their eyes and just want to stare at her. Her every move exuded confidence and wisdom, charming and powerful. Qin Lu sighed suddenly. His girlfriend was so outstanding, he had to watch her carefully and never let others have the opportunity to steal her. In the conference room, Nan Yan had already closed the PPT on her notebook. She closed her notebook carelessly, glanced at everyone, and said lightly, "My speech is over. Next, please ask me questions about the topic of this time." Her tone of neither servility nor arrogance aroused everyone's praise. Although the girl in front of her was not very old, she was about the same age as the granddaughters of many people present. But everyone had the illusion that they were talking to the same people and people of the same kind. However, being moved by Nan Yan's words was one thing, but genetic research was a prohibited project. For a while, they looked at each other, with different expressions in their eyes. Zhong Jingkai saw their hesitation, so he stood up and said, "Everyone, please express your opinions. Although the genetic research mentioned by classmate Nan Yan is a project that is banned internationally, I believe everyone knows the previous 7 Sins incident. Even one force dares to blatantly conduct human genetic experiments. Other countries must have done more in secret than what is shown on the surface. However, our country is too stuck on this project and has never started it, resulting in us being far behind other countries at the beginning. Moreover, research studying human genes is not a bad thing. It can be applied in many medical fields in the future, and it will definitely help cure some incurable diseases that cannot be cured at present. What President Zhong said makes sense. In fact, it is not difficult to find in the news and various reports that foreign countries are indeed conducting genetic research. Since foreign countries cannot obey the orders of the United Nations, why should we obey them? Carrying out genetic research is beneficial to the country and the people. I think it is feasible. Yes, I also agree. Among the people present, more and more voices echoed. It is obvious that Nan Yan convinced them. But there are also different opinions and opposition. Such an important matter cannot be decided so easily just by listening to a little girl's words. Other countries are other countries, and my country is my country. As for my country not allowing genetic research, it must be a decision made after serious consideration. According to the current international news, all genetic research is illegal research. Using human bodies for experiments has destroyed many innocent lives. My country has always been people-oriented. It is better not to violate the unban. Although Nan Yan's starting point is good, she is too young after all. Since Dean Zhong is her mentor, he should consider it more. There are also many people who hold opposing attitudes. And because it was Zhong Jingkai who took the initiative to speak, he was also questioned. Zhou Jinyu was not in a hurry, so he sat on it, propped up his head lazily, and watched them argue. He wanted to complete the task assigned by the president, but if he passed it directly, it would definitely attract a lot of criticism. Besides, it would be difficult for him to report if the higher UPS investigated. Those people dared not bother the president, and would only come to trouble him. He must find a suitable opportunity, and when someone else proposes it, he will agree to it, so that he can be picked out. Therefore, Zhou Jinyu is not in a hurry at all. Moreover, he wanted to see what this little girl who made the president, who always didn't care about things, come here in person and even use the back door, was capable of. How could she get the president's favor? Nan Yan was not in a hurry. She listened calmly to the arguments of those who agreed and opposed, opened her notebook, and tapped on it quickly. 10 minutes later, the sound in the conference room gradually weakened. Everyone's eyes fell on Nan Yan again. Zhong Jingkai originally thought that Nan Yan's plan this time had a 90% chance of success. Who knew that even if these people saw Nan Yan's excellence and knew that conducting genetic research was in the interests of the country, they still stubbornly opposed it and refused to agree. Now, he was a little unsure in his heart whether today's result would make Nan Yan what she wanted. Zhong Jingkai looked at Nan Yan in silence. If genetic research is not allowed in the country, will she really leave China and go to country M? If she really wants to leave, it will definitely be a big loss for China. Thinking of this, Zhong Jingkai's eyes gradually became solemn. No matter what, he must promote Nan Yan's plan and keep her here. She must not be allowed to leave. The sound in the conference room gradually faded, and Nan Yan's work was basically done. Since everyone has disputes about my proposal, and can't come up with any other reasons to oppose it except to refute it with the unban, then please watch these videos and make another choice. Nan Yan tapped the enter key with her fingers, and the screen projection showed a picture. That was the miserable state of humans used for genetic experiments that Nan Yan copied from the laboratory of the 7 deadly sins. There were also pictures of other countries violating the unban and conducting experiments in secret. Without exception, those pictures brought them a great shock. Even with their temperament, they all felt serious discomfort and physical disgust. Zhong Jingkai frowned. Those people originally disagreed with conducting genetic research. Nan Yan made these pictures. Wouldn't that make everyone more repulsive? Even Zhou Jinyu, who was sitting next to the main seat, didn't understand what Nan Yan's current actions were. Since you have seen these images and know the adverse effects of genetic experiments once they are made public, why do you still insist on doing it? If you want to become famous and quickly stand out in the scientific research community, you will find another way to attract attention, which is absolutely not allowed. Dean Zhong, what does your student want to do? Shouldn't you give an explanation? Zhong Jingkai. He was too lazy to speak. During the entire speech, all the examples and starting points of Nan Yan were all about how to benefit mankind through genetic experiments and genetic modification. Did they listen carefully just now? Quiet. Nan Yan frowned slightly, and a cold word silenced those who had some emotional reactions. She spoke slowly, "The things I asked you to watch have not been played yet. If you have anything to say, I hope you will say it after you finish watching it." The video was still playing on the big screen. After the uncomfortable images at the beginning were played, it was the patients in the hospital who were tortured by diseases. The desperate and painful appearance of those patients moved everyone. Birth, aging, illness and death are the laws of nature. But the existence of hospitals is a place for humans to fight against diseases. And death is the result that everyone must experience, and illness is also a process that most dying people cannot skip. These scenes in the ward are likely to be what they will experience in the future. In fact, it is too easy to empathize. The scenes in the hospital ended, and what appeared on the big screen were the achievements of the drugs she had researched and used in medicine. That's right, she was deceived by Shishkin before, and most of the drugs she researched were actually genetic drugs. Except for those taken away by Shishkin, the rest were used in clinical treatment. Especially after the improved formula of T-1 reagent was announced, it is currently used in clinical treatment in many hospitals around the world, bringing hope to many patients. The efficacy of T-2 drug is stronger than T-1, but in order to avoid exposing her identity, she did not reveal the matter of Professor Yoon. Professor Yoon and many people present are old acquaintances, and her changes can actually touch these people more. But Nan Yan would not do that. Gene experiments themselves do not have the concept of good and evil. They are completely determined by the starting point of the researchers. If the starting point is good, it will be a policy that benefits the country and the people. On the contrary, it is the reason why it is banned by the United Nations. And in medicine, the special medicines used are more or less related to genetic drugs. Everyone cannot deny this. Nan Yan's calm attitude, coupled with a well-reasoned and well-organized reasoning, made those who were originally opposed to it waver. Yes. If genetic research is used to solve the pain caused by diseases, it will be a great thing that benefits the country and the people. Moreover, this is closely related to everyone, and it is a decision that everyone will benefit from. Zhou Jinyu couldn't help but want to applaud Nan Yan. This time, no one will object again. Sure enough, as Nan Yan's voice fell, the voice rang again in the conference room. But this time, it was no longer questioning Nan Yan's motives, but seriously asking about things related to genetic research. At the end of the meeting, Nan Yan's topic selection was unanimously approved, and it was decided to start genetic research. Zhou Jinyu easily completed the tasks assigned by Qin Lu, and instead of showing up in person, he couldn't help but run to Qin Lu's office to claim credit from him. As a result, when he went to the office, he discovered that the president had disappeared. Leaving so soon. Zhou Jinyu felt the urge to vomit blood. It must be because Nan Yan left that he couldn't wait to leave him aside and chase that little girl. Seeing sex and forgetting friends. Zhou Jinyu complained a few words angrily, venting his resentment before making another call. He suppressed his resentment and asked through gritted teeth, "President, have you left already?" Qin Lu replied non-committally, "Well, is there anything else?" Zhou Jinyu. The summary report hadn't been shown to him yet, and he hadn't signed his name yet, so he confidently asked him if he had anything else. "I thought that the president could sign the summary report in the office this time without me having to send someone out again." Qin Lu said calmly, "My official seal is in the drawer. You can just take it and hand it in. I listened to the summary report live, so there is no need to read it again." Zhou Jinyu, "Okay, I understand," he gritted his teeth. Hashtag. On the way back to Imperial University, Zhong Jingkai stared at Nan Yan thoughtfully. Suddenly, he asked, Yan Yan, do you know Professor Yun Ziun? We know him. Guessing what Zhong Jingkai wanted to ask, Nan Yan did not follow him in circles and said directly, I cured Professor Yun's illness. It's really you. Zhong Jingkai murmured, and then grabbed her wrist with some excitement. Yan Yan, thank you so much. Nan Yan was inexplicably thanked, and a thought slowly came to his mind. After Zhong Jingkai got excited and saw his inappropriate behavior, he quickly took his hands back, rubbed his hands, and explained, Yunzi is my junior sister. She has devoted her whole life to national scientific research, but in her later years, she received too much radiation, which seriously affected her body and made her terminally ill. Every time I see her weak and painful look, my heart breaks. Western medicine has no treatment, so we wanted to try whether traditional Chinese medicine can treat her, so we sent her to Jinjinj, hoping that Dean Tao could help relieve her pain. Zhong Jingkai looked at Nan Yan and asked, Yan Yan, is junior sister Yunzi's health really well? Yunzi did not tell anyone else that she only had 3 years left to live. In order to comfort those who cared about her, she asked Yun Jingshan to tell them that her illness had been cured. But Zhong Jingkai thinks this is unlikely. He studies these things himself, so he naturally knows how serious mutated cancer caused by radiation is. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 469. He studies these things himself, so he naturally knows how serious mutated cancer caused by radiation is. Although now it seems that Yunzi's condition is getting better, much better than before, and his body is no longer suffering from the pain, as if he has really recovered. But he felt that it would not be so soon. For such a serious illness to be cured within a few months, it is probably impossible even for Divine Dr. Hua of the Divine Doctor sect to personally take action. Zhong Jingkai didn't know yet that Nan Yan was Hua Shifang's apprentice. He didn't know that Hua Shifang had returned to the imperial capital now. Nan Yan looked at Zhong Jingkai's concern for Yunji, hesitated for a moment, and said directly without covering up, Professor Yun's body is fine for the time being. But I can only guarantee that she will persist for another 3 years. Zhong Jingkai's expression suddenly changed. He knew it. Yunzi's body was not fully recovered, but in order to reassure them, she refused to say anything. Yan Yan, is there really no way to save her? If it were before, maybe I wouldn't have been able to find a way, but now it's up to Dean and I to work together to save Professor Yun. Nan Yan's words made Zhong Jingkai look startled. He understood the meaning of her words. Genetic research. It would be pointless to treat junior sister Yunzi's body with normal medical methods. Only by truly developing genetic medicine can junior sister Yunzi repair the mutated cells in her body and restore her to health. Thinking of this, Zhong Jingkai looked at her solemnly, nodded and said, okay. After passing the topic selection, all that is left is to hand it over to the superiors for approval online. Zhou Jinyu actually muttered a little when he reported this topic. He was not sure whether the superiors would agree. Although it was approved by all members in the parliament, the real decision-making power was not in his hands. He had done everything he could, and in the end, if he still couldn't pass, the president couldn't blame him for not doing the job well. Qin Lu got the news that his superiors wanted to block this experiment. On the same day, he drove directly to the home of a certain important person. Hey, what day is it today? Why do you have time to visit this old man like me? Qi Sijhan saw Qin Lu and joked with a smile. Mr. Qi, this junior is here today because he really has something to do. When dealing with a man like Qi Sijhan, if you beat around the bush and be talked about in circles again, you probably won't be able to get to the point from now until noon. Qi Sijhan straightened his face and asked, What's the matter? They all understand Qin Lu's character. If it wasn't really something, I wouldn't come in person. After all, even if they want to see Qin Lu, it is not that easy. What's more, let him come to you on his own initiative. Mr. Qi, let me show you something first. Qin Lu opened the notebook he carried with him, pulled out a folder, and handed it to Qi Sijhen. Qi Sijhen first raised his head and glanced at Qin Lu, and then his eyes fell on the screen in front of him. What Qin Lu showed to Qi Sijhen was also the information found at the Seven Deadly Sins headquarters. But it was much more detailed than what Nanyang released at that time. It also includes Nolan's plan and ambition to create superhumans through genetic modification. Qin Lu, where did you get these things? Qi Sijhen's face was majestic and his expression was extremely solemn. As for the Seven Deadly Sins, there are only some appearances that have been released so far. Because if the real thing is released, it will cause a sensation in the world. Due to some selfish motives, Qin Lu has not yet reported the Seven Deadly Sins. Only a few of them know the truth. Qin Lu poured himself a cup of tea without hesitation, took a sip, and then said softly, Mr. Qi should know about the Seven Deadly Sins. Of course Qi Sijhen nodded and continued to look at the things on the screen. Is this information found from the Seven Deadly Sins? Exactly. Qi Sijhen snorted coldly and said angrily, you are so heartless and cruel, you are in vain. He closed the lid of his notebook and looked livid. Even though he is old and has strong mental endurance, seeing these things can still cause him discomfort. It's simply a loss of humanity. The United Nations has banned genetic experiments in order to prevent such things from happening. Therefore, after discussion, we rejected the topic submitted by Xiao Zhou. Qi Sijhen could more or less guess that the reason why Qin Lu came back here and showed him these things was probably because he wanted to convince him about this matter. Nowadays, there are many countries that secretly conduct human genetic experiments. Mr. Qi, have you ever thought about it? If other countries really use genetic technology to cultivate modified mutants, no matter which country they are, they will have a group of different people in their hands. A humanoid murder weapon that knows pain, is as strong as an ox, and even has mutant abilities. What impact will that have on our country, China? You would naively think that those countries that are hostile to us would not use this to threaten us. Qin Lu had no intention of engaging in official talk with Qi Sijhen, so he made it clear. No one can stop what his little girl wants to do. Qi Sijhen was speechless by Qin Lu's straightforward question. Yes. How could he not know that those hostile countries would do everything possible to target them? If they are really allowed to develop genetically modified people, it will be a catastrophe for China. Qi Sijhen said sternly, Qin Lu, do you know that if we do the same, what is the difference between us and them? If you want to do this kind of experiment, you must implement it on the human body. Even monkeys and gorillas cannot be used as guinea pigs. This is simply not feasible. No matter which department it goes to, it will not be approved. Mr. Qi, why do you only see half of the problem? Everything has two sides. Although genetic modification requires human experiments, genetic modification is not only used to harm the human body. Why do you think Professor Yun is still safe and sound now? You mean Yunji's disease? Genetic technology is a double-edged sword. How to use it depends on the person who is doing it. I believe Yan, her starting point is to save people. The other starting point is for China. Qin Lu's words made Qi Sijhen silent. He stood up and paced back and forth in the living room. After a while, he said to Qin Lu in a deep voice, I will give you an answer within 3 days. Qin Lu nodded, thank you for your help, Mr. Qi. After Qin Lu left, Qi Sijhen put on his coat, asked someone to prepare the car, and went outside. Hashtag. After leaving Qi Sijhen, Qin Lu looked at the time and went to the Imperial Capital University to pick up Nanyang. Nan Yan has been studying with Zhong Jingkai most of the time recently. She has already told Zhong Jingkai about the situation of Shen Junqing and Bai Chen. It was only after seeing the situation of the two with his own eyes that Zhong Jingkai understood why Nan Yan must start genetic research. He also understood why Nan Yan would rather leave China than stick to it. Knowing that she was eager to save people, Zhong Jingkai also tried his best to help her. The freshmen are still undergoing a 1-month military training life. Qin Lu scanned his face at the guard and drove the car in directly. The car stopped downstairs of the office building of the Department of Biochemistry, and he sent a message to Nan Yan. Qin Lu, when will you go home? After receiving the message, Nan Yan, who was drinking tea in Zhong Jingkai's office, replied, I'm going back. She was going back early today. After Mrs. Qin knew that Mr. N was also in the imperial capital, and with the presence of Hua Shifang and Sun Chan, she wanted everyone to have a meal together. She had to pick up her grandfather and master later, so she really couldn't go back too late. After sending the message, Nan Yan stood up and said to Zhong Jingkai, Dean, I should go back. Zhong Jingkai nodded, go. Since returning from the meeting, Nan Yan no longer had to go out early and come back late like before, and went to school and went home every day like an ordinary student. There was probably not much free time left. If the review was passed, she would stay in the laboratory next. She would not come out until she came up with a result. So after having dinner together today, I don't know how long it would take for the next time. Zhong Jingkai sent Nan Yan downstairs. After receiving Nan Yan's message, Qin Lu knew that she would come down soon, so he did not reply. Instead, he sat in the car and lit a cigarette. As a result, Nan Yan had come down before he finished smoking the cigarette. Nan Yan saw his car parked downstairs at a glance. After all, such a conspicuous car, the only one in the entire imperial capital, it would be difficult for her not to see it. At that moment, she walked directly to the car. When she walked to the car, the window was lowered, revealing Qin Lu's face that brought disaster to the country and the people. Brother Nan Yan supported her hand on the car frame and greeted him with a smile, come to pick me up again. Qin Lu's cold eyes were stained with a faint smile. He bent his fingers and tapped Nan Yan's head lightly, get in the car. Oh, Nan Yan walked around the front of the car, opened the door of the co-pilot, and then slowly buckled the seat belt before looking at him sideways. Next time you come to pick me up, you can tell me in advance, otherwise you may have to wait for a long time. Okay, Qin Lu agreed happily. The car turned around and slowly drove out of the Imperial University. On the way, Qin Lu caught a glimpse of Nan Yan's quiet appearance and said, Yan Yan, you and Dean Zhong should prepare for the experiment. In 3 days, the procedures will be completed. This is her concern and what she wants to do most now. Only when Shen Junqing and Bai Chen wake up can she worry about other things. Nan Yan was still thinking about something. Hearing this, she raised her eyebrows, brother, can you know the gossip? Qin Lu, well, there are channels to find out. Oh. Nan Yan looked at someone meaningfully and did not expose his lies. Since he didn't want her to know, she should pretend not to know. Qin Lu. Little girl, what are you thinking about again? He didn't mean to hide it from her. It's just this identity. Let's do it this way for now. After the matter is over, he will find a chance to confess to the little girl. Hashtag. In the evening. Hua Shifang, Sun Chan, Mr. N, and Zhang Nai were taken to Qin's house together. It was not the first time for old lady Qin to see old Master N, but it was indeed the first time for her to meet Hua Shifang and Sun Chan. Moreover, these two people were both legendary figures, which made old lady Qin a little nervous. Dr. Hua, Mr. Sun, come in and sit down. After old lady Qin greeted Hua Shifang and Sun Chan, she also greeted old Master N, very enthusiastically. Aunt Li was also busy. Qin Lu and Nan Yan sat on the sofa together, watching the old people chatting with each other, but did not go over to join in the fun. "Sister, can I learn martial arts?" Zhang Nai came to Nan Yan obediently and looked at her firmly. She didn't want to study art anymore. Studying art can't punish bad guys. She wants to be like her sister in the future, with enough strength to fight criminals. Nan Yan took her hand and asked her to sit next to her. "Have you really decided?" Zhang Nai nodded vigorously, "Yes." "Then I'll send you to a place where you are just the right age to receive training." Zhang Nai's eyes lit up, "Thank you, sister. But sister wants to remind you that it is very strict there. No matter what your identity is outside, once you enter, you will be treated equally, without any privileges, and it will be very hard and painful." Nan Yan said it very carefully, and finally asked again, "Xiao Nai, are you sure you can stick to it?" "I can." Zhang Nai clenched his hands into fists. The thin arms were tightly clenched. Feeling Zhang Nai's determination, Nan Yan reached out and stroked her back comfortingly. "Okay, tomorrow, I'll ask him to pick you up." Zhang Nai had been struggling for a long time, and finally made a choice, and she was relieved. During this period, she thought a lot, and various ideas flashed through her mind, but with her ability, she could do too little. Since she is so weak, let her make herself stronger first. Only when she is strong can she do more things. Today she got Nan Yan's support again, and her thoughts became more firm. "Sister, you talk to Mr. Qin first, I'll make a phone call and tell the master." Zhang Nai is now Mr. Lu's apprentice. Before coming to the capital, Mr. Lu was still telling her to relax and wait until she was in a good mood, and then go back to learn chess with him. But now it seems that she will not go back. Since she was brought back to the Yan family by her sister, both Mr. An and Mr. Lu are people who really care about her, and she has long regarded them as grandfathers in her heart. Zhang Nai knew that her decision would disappoint Mr. Lu and fail his training. But she did not regret making such a decision. Nan Yan looked at the sadness on her face, rubbed her head with her hand, and whispered, "If you are not comfortable with Grandpa, I can speak for you." Zhang Nai shook her head, "No need, sister, I want to speak to Master myself." She had just decided to be strong and make herself stronger, how could she not dare to say such a thing in person? "Okay, then you speak for yourself, and come back to me after you finish the call." After Zhang Nai left, Qin Lu put his arms around her waist and brought her to his arms. In a half-hug and half-embrace posture, he lowered his head and whispered in her ear, "Yan Yan, where do you want to arrange Zhang Nai to go? If it is not very convenient, you can let me arrange it?" "No trouble, it is very convenient." Nan Yan quietly struggled in his arms for a while, and whispered, "In front of so many elders, we should restrain ourselves a little. Although Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss." Author, Junanan. Chapter 470. "It's not a bother, it's very convenient." Nan Yan struggled quietly in his arms and reminded him in a low voice, "In front of so many elders, we have to restrain ourselves a little. Although the elders in the family now know about their relationship and no longer stop them from being together, it's not good to be too arrogant." Okay. Qin Lu glanced at the old people who were greeting each other in the living room, quickly kissed Nan Yan on the lips, and then let go of Nan Yan. Nan Yan's pretty face turned red, and she felt the tingling touch left on her lips and licked it subconsciously. Qin Lu, who had been staring at her, was bewitched by her action, and his eyes suddenly became deeper. "I really want to hug her and kiss her again." Just when this idea became stronger and stronger, the words of Mrs. Jean pulled his reason back. "Alu, don't sit there, come over and invite Mr. Hua and others to take a seat." Mrs. Jean smiled and looked at her grandson with a more pleasing look. After all, Qin Lu had managed to deal with Hua Shifang, Sun Chan and Mr. An without them knowing, so that they did not stop Nan Yan from being with him, which made her very satisfied. Mrs. Jean was very happy now. Her precious granddaughter-in-law would definitely not be able to escape. She was just waiting for them to get married after Nan Yan graduated from university. After the marriage, the two of them would work hard to give her a great-grandson as soon as possible, and then her life would be complete. It must be said that the old lady would wake up with a happy smile when she dreamed of that scene. Qin Lu responded, and stood up with Nan Yan, and went over to invite the old people to sit in the living room. Hua Shifang looked at his little disciple who was already at the Qin family like at his own home, and could only sigh faintly. A girl cannot be kept at home when she grows up. That is to say, the identity of the little disciple in this body is only 19 years old, and she is still a freshman, otherwise she would have been eager to marry into the Qin family. But since he was the man she chose and he passed his test, she could just abduct him. As long as the little apprentice can live happily in the future, this is more important than anything else. Hua Shifang's impression of Qin Lu has completely changed since the last time he risked his life to save Nan Yan. In addition, he also persuaded Sun Chan to treat Qin Lu better. In this regard, Sun Chan could only say, "Senior brother is the most important, and senior brother has the final say." Senior brother, the master, did not stop him, so what else can he, the second master, say? As for Grandpa Ankang Pengan, he entrusted Nan Yan to Qin Lu early. In a word, this dinner tonight is the first formal meeting between the parents of both sides. The dinner process was also enjoyable, and they were very satisfied with each other and had a harmonious relationship. The next day, someone came to pick up Zhang Nai. It was someone from Li Yuan. Dark Domain has its own talent training system and training base. Nan Yan naturally wanted Zhang Nai to stay in her own territory, so that she could feel more at ease. However, she did not tell Zhang Nai, not wanting to give her a backstage, so that she could use her own efforts and beliefs to stimulate the most potential. Zhang Nai was taken away, and 2 days later, the documents from above were sent down, and Nan Yan's genetic experiment passed the review and could begin. Then Nan Yan and Zhong Jingkai entered the working state, staying in the experiment almost 24 hours a day. In a flash, 3 months passed. Nan Yan's figure was much thinner. She did not go out for a long time, and was not exposed to sunlight and ultraviolet rays. Her skin was white and almost transparent. Only her eyes were congested due to excessive fatigue, and the whites of her eyes were full of red bloodshot. At this time, on the laboratory table, Nan Yan completed the last step of the experiment. In front of her, there was a test tube filled with transparent liquid. And her hand holding the test tube was shaking slightly. Yan, how is it? Zhong Jingkai was more nervous than Nan Yan. In 3 months, Zhong Jingkai's attitude towards Nan Yan changed again and again. Now, he looked at Nan Yan with the attitude of looking at her as an equal, and could no longer treat her as a student. The whole research process was led by Nan Yan, except that he had to do more work at the beginning. Later, he could only help. Zhong Jingkai couldn't help but sigh. Nan Yan's talent was far above his. He didn't dare to estimate her future achievements. "It's done." Nan Yan suppressed her excitement and said these 2 words calmly. More than 3 months, more than 100 days. She conducted experiments again and again almost day and night. Finally, she developed a real gene repair agent. Shen Junqing and Bai Chen's genes were irreversibly damaged. If the genes were not repaired, their bodies would never wake up. Now with the gene repair agent, as long as there is enough, they will get better soon. Great. Hearing Nan Yan's words, even Zhong Jingkai, who usually restrained and calm, couldn't help showing joy on his face. Nan Yan said calmly, "Now we need to apply it clinically to determine the final effect. President Zhong, you and everyone have worked hard during this period. I will take the first generation of gene repair agents to test the efficacy. You wait for my news." She did not forget that she promised at the beginning that she would unconditionally hand over the research results to the country. And she was able to succeed in her research thanks to the support of the country. Besides, Zhong Jingkai also had to report to the higher UPS. Yanyan, I know you are anxious and want to save your family, but your body has been exhausted recently and your losses have been too serious. You need a good rest. Listen to the teacher and get a good sleep first. Zhong Jingkai felt sorry for Nan Yan's desperate efforts. She has never left the laboratory since she entered it. She is always busy except for necessary meals and sleep. There were several times when I was so tired that I collapsed, so I took 2 bottles of nutritional injections and got back into it. It's really heartbreaking. I know. Nan Yan smiled lightly. Dean, you also need to have a good rest. Hashtag. Nan Yan came out of the laboratory and was hit by the sun. She closed her eyes tightly and covered them with her hands. Stimulated by the light, my eyes secreted tears uncontrollably, and my eyelashes were stained with crystal water droplets. She rubbed her eyes and opened them again. She didn't feel any pain in her eyes. When I looked again, I realized that she was standing in the shadows, and the sunlight could not find her eyes. I've lost so much weight, Yanyan, you didn't take good care of my child, how can you compensate me? Qin Lu held a parasol and stood beside her. His deep gaze stared closely at her fair, almost transparent face. There were intense emotions surging crazily in his eyes, but they were deeply restrained by him. As soon as he finished speaking, Nan Yan threw herself into his arms and hugged his waist. Brother, I miss you so much. Qin Lu was still feeling sorry for Yunanyan for exhausting him like this, but with just one word from her, all the resentment in his heart was gone, leaving only softness. Raising his hand and caressing her back a few times, Qin Lu suppressed his emotions and said in a low tone, I miss you too. How many times had he wanted to break into the laboratory, snatch her out, and force her to rest and relax. Reason made him suppress such thoughts again, believing that she had sense and she could do it. This is her choice and what she must do, and he cannot be a burden to her and can only silently cheer for her. Fortunately, she succeeded. And it only took more than 3 months, which was already less time than he expected. Qin Lu saw Nan Yan's tiredness and didn't let her talk anymore. Wu Yu took the parasol and held it up for the two of them, while Qin Lu directly picked up Nan Yan and carried her to the car. On the way, Qin Lu informed the members in a family group that he had received news about Nan Yan. In the family group, there are Mrs. Qin, Mr. An, Mr. Lu, Hua Shifang, Sun Chen and him, a total of 6 people. Even Nan Yan was not dragged in. Mainly, this group was used for Qin Lu to promptly notify others of Nan Yan's news after she entered the laboratory. It's actually not appropriate to say they are a family group. After all, he and Nan Yan are not married yet, so they are a bit unfair. Hua Shifang originally didn't like smart devices, but it was because of Nan Yan that he learned how to use smartphones. As a result, after I learned it, I discovered how fun smartphones are. Now I am an old, internet-addicted teenager. I hold my phone and watch it every day, and I am fascinated by it. After Qin Lu informed him, the others spoke one after another, the content of which was nothing more than just receive it and how is Yanyan's condition, has she lost weight? After Qin Lu replied one by one, he told them that Nan Yan was very tired, so don't bother her in a hurry and let her have a good rest. Others readily agreed. Nan Yan was indeed very tired, but she was physically tired but mentally excited, and it was impossible to fall asleep. Afraid that Qin Lu would be worried, he closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. But later, smelling the familiar scent of Qin Lu and feeling full of security, she fell asleep without realizing it. Qin Lu didn't even wake up when he took her out of the car and sent her to the room. After a nap, I slept until 8 o'clock the next day. Qin Lu came to see her for the nth time, opened the door, and met her eyes. After a moment of silence, Qin Lu strode to her bed, stretched out his hand and rubbed her head out of habit. You must be hungry, go eat first. Nan Yan blinked in confusion. Oh. After working continuously for a long time and suddenly taking a break, her brain had not yet reacted and was in a state of chaos. She didn't feel hungry either. In other words, her stomach and intestines were in a state of inactivity due to being slack for too long, and they didn't even bother to convey hunger. After washing up and changing clothes, the two of them came to the restaurant. There were a lot of people in the restaurant. He didn't bother her yesterday, but today Hua Shifang and the others are here. When they saw that Nan Yan had lost at least 10 pounds, they were all heartbroken. Mr. An hurriedly put some food for her. Yan Yan, eat more. You see how thin you are now. If the wind gets stronger, you can blow her away. Not to be outdone, Mrs. Jean said while picking up vegetables. Yan Yan, just tell Grandma what you want to eat, and Grandma will ask the kitchen to cook it for you, whatever you like. Nan Yan saw that the plates in front of her were piled up into a hill, and she was moved and helpless and said, I know, I will eat well every day in the future and try to grow the meat back as soon as possible. So much, she felt a little full even though she hadn't eaten yet. But in order to live up to their good intentions, Nan Yan ate all the food they had. After breakfast, everyone went to the living room. Hua Shi just asked, Yan Yan, how is your research going? Nan Yan's expression condensed slightly. The first generation gene repair agent has been developed. I plan to leave for country M today to test the medicine. Gene repair agents have no effect on normal people. They can only be used by people with damaged genes. Therefore, Nan Yan plans to use Shen Junqing and Bai Chen to test the drugs directly. Their bodies are seriously damaged and they are now completely dependent on external forces to maintain their lives. Their physical condition is a mess. Even if they are worse, they will not be much worse. Therefore, it is better to use their bodies to adjust the efficacy of the drugs directly, which will make them get better faster. Hua Shifang nodded, okay, I'll go with you. Sun Chan also said, Yan Yan, a batch of good medicines have matured in the Baiko garden. If you have any useful ones, just go and pick them. Okay, Nan Yan nodded, and then said, but not now. After the third brother and Bai Chen wake up, their bodies need to be properly adjusted. Then I will go to the second master's Baiko garden to pick medicine. Yes. Because Nan Yan was anxious to save people and had a good rest, she looked very energetic, so Qin Lu arranged a plane. Except for Mr. An and Mrs. Jean, the rest of them flew to country M together. Hashtag Merck Biopharmaceuticals. Marcus, Li Yuan, and Zy Gui received the news in advance and were waiting for Nan Yan and the others to arrive. To be honest, Marcus was relieved when Nan Yan said that they had developed a drug to save Shen Junqing and the others. Shen Junqing and Bai Chen were in a very bad condition. Although they seemed to be unconscious on the surface, the medical equipment outside their bodies was also maintaining their lives. It seemed that nothing had changed. But in fact, their bodies were constantly deteriorating. He was really worried that if Nan Yan could not develop a drug to save them, they would continue to be in a coma and die in a coma. Fortunately, everything was in time. The plane landed, and Nan Yan asked Marcus about their current situation while walking into the laboratory. After changing into sterile clothes in the locker room, several people came to Shen Junqing and Bai Chen. The two of them looked like they were in a coma as before, with no perception of the outside world. Only the occasional beeping sound from the instruments connected to them reminded others that they were still alive. Otherwise, they really looked like two corpses that had long lost signs of life. Nan Yan saw them like this, and felt so distressed that it was hard to describe. Third brother, Bai Chen, I will definitely wake you up. The first generation of gene repair agent was injected into the bodies of the two people. Their physical condition was monitored 24 hours a day to obtain the most detailed values. Then Nan Yan adjusted the second generation, the third generation, according to the changes in their physical data. Time passed in a flash, and a month passed. Nan Yan has continuously adjusted the gene repair agent to the 8th generation, and the damaged and mutated genes in Shen Junqing and Bai Chen were finally repaired to normal. The physical data is completely up to standard, and all medical equipment should be removed. They no longer need these devices to maintain their lives, and the body's autonomous circulation is completely sufficient. Nan Yan pinched the silver needle with her fingertips and looked at Hua Shifang. Master, let's wake them up.